What is up, fam? Hello, how is everybody? Welcome to Panda's Patriots with the one and only Sabine Durden, Angel Mom, and we like to call her Dom's Mom. That's what she goes by a lot, as you can tell by her shirt. Welcome, Sabina. How are you this evening?
Looking forward to talking with you.
All right, unfortunately, I had you muted, so can you say that
Oh,
one more time? It wouldn't be a production unless Smooch Panda forgets to unmute a mic. How are you, Sabina?
I'm good. Thank you, Bruce. I'm so excited and so honored to be here with you.
Well, I am certainly honored to have you. Uh, First thing, before you introduce yourself, I noticed that you have one heck of a background behind you. Would you
Yes.
mind explaining your background a little bit?
Well, on this side is my German flag. I'm going to do a Vanna White. This is my German flag because I was born in Germany. I'm one of the legal immigrants.
Nice.
And then this is the flag I pledged allegiance to because I became a citizen in 1996. And this particular flag was flown over the Washington Capitol on Dominic's birthday this year on January 22nd. And it was sent to me with a certificate, and I'm really proud of this flag. And then we had a German license plate made for Dominic, and we also have a little badge right there that was on his firefighter's uniform. So, plus I have his ashes right here in my little locket. So
Nice.
he's all around. He's watching and going right on, mom. Thumbs up.
Nice, nice. So the flag actually flew over our capital on his
Yes,
birthday, which was January 22nd.
yes,
That
sir.
is fantastic. And you have another flag like that on the way, I
Yes, a
understand.
little bit smaller, and it's the flag that was flown on July 12th, which marked the sixth anniversary of his death.
I see. So
Yeah.
you mentioned right off the bat that you're a German citizen, and I see a German flag, and so that is very interesting to me. I'd like to find out a little bit about Sabine Durden, the from Germany. What was your childhood like? What would you like to tell the family that's listening? What it's like being raised as a child in Germany? And
Well, I would tell everybody I was just the nicest kid and never got in trouble. Yeah, right. No, my mother, she would like, no. I was the youngest, and my maiden name was Bear, like the teddy bear. So my nickname back then was Beanie Bear.
Okay,
Yeah,
Beanie Bear.
and I was born in Germany, and my childhood was exciting. My mom and dad were very close, and I had a 10-year older sister. We did a lot of camping, a lot of outside stuff. It was just fun. It was great. I was raised well. I became a rebel at 15, and did things I wasn't supposed to do.
Well, what's a German rebel like?
A German rebel is when you're not supposed to go to the disco. Back then they had discos, but you snuck away, and things like that.
Nice.
But overall, I never got in trouble, never been arrested, and just enjoying family life with my family. And then got older, and then I started going to the disco because then I was allowed to.
Yeah.
And
Did you have a large family?
no, only one sister, 10-year
Okay.
older sister. And my dad passed away 1992. He was my best friend. And I always say there are three men in my life that loved me unconditional. One is my dad, the second one is my son, and the third one and last one, that's Anthony Coulter. That's my fiance. Unconditional love from three guys. So I'm blessed. I'm very lucky.
Yeah, unconditional love is not an
Yeah,
easy love to find. I
I
think
know.
most of us listening could 100% agree on that.
Yeah.
So, what was
Well,
your interests and whatnot when you were
my interests were I worked
besides the
for,
disco?
well, yeah, that was big. And then I had a little I had a little moped, and I went tennis playing, and did different sports. I was a great swimmer in school, and so really active. And then, like I said, then I started listening to American music, and I love James Brown. And I said, all right. So they had a disco in our little town. I grew up in Nuremberg, Germany. Some people might know it from the Nuremberg trials, Hitler and so forth. And that's still there. Maybe that's why people call me Nazi. Just put
Yeah,
that to
I was definitely going to get into that later.
Oh, for sure.
I did see news articles where you were definitely called a Nazi.
Yeah. Wow. But
That threw
uh,
me for a loop.
um, then I started going to the disco, and there were soldiers, and then I heard more American music, and I liked the vibe. And that's eventually in 1978, I met Dominic's dad, and we started dating. In 1979, got married. And in 1982, had our little German chocolate baby. Yeah.
Little
I
German
think
chocolate.
he called himself that, German chocolate, and it just stuck with him. Um, so his dad was in the service in the military, army, stationed there. We were stationed in Texas just for a short time, came back to Germany to the same town. So Dominic was pretty much raised around his grandparents. Loving, kind, funny. He picked up all these traits. Um, and then in 1989, we got orders for Barstow, California. So I thought I didn't hear Barstow. It just went straight over. I just heard California, and I'm like, yay, be Hollywood, Beverly Hills. Yes, no,
Movie stars.
yes, right in the middle of it.
The American dream, right?
Oh, well.
Well, that's what you think.
Well, that's what I thought, and I hope it. So we finally arrived, and we spent a few days in LA, and I got to see Beverly Hills and Disneyland and all that. And then we started heading to Fort Irwin in the desert, and I didn't know. So an hour, 2 hours later, we're driving through a dark desert. I'm starting to cry because I'm not liking what I don't see, and it was quite something to get used to. But I'm grateful because we lived on base, so I felt safe. And I got to work for Elizabeth Arden Cosmetics, because in Germany I worked for Estee Lauder. So I had a bit of apprehension about speaking English well enough to sell, and I've gotten pretty good at it, and I acclimated and was just good. And then my ex left the military, and we moved to Moreno Valley. It's right next to Riverside, Southern California. And that's where I started the process of applying for citizenship. Because at that time, I was still carrying a little card that said resident alien.
Right. And
Yeah, and it
what
didn't.
year was that?
It was in 89.
You started that process?
Yeah, 89, 90, around that time, and then moved to Moreno Valley and started 92. Somewhere in that area I started, and had to go through much testing. And I got to go back a little bit. Before I even got to come to America with my child.
Right. What was that
And
like?
oh my Lord, my American husband at that time, I had to go through medical testing. I had to have a sponsor. I had to have money in the bank. I had to sign paperwork that I will not be able to collect anything from the government, no matter how bad things get.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So I signed all that. I did all that. I carried my resident alien card. Never thought anything weird about it, because it was what you had to do to come to America and then become a citizen. And I remember studying history and studying the questions and for the citizenship test, and going to Laguna Niguel and waiting in line and then getting tested. And I still hear the lady who was testing me on the questions, when I had something wrong, she went, It was like a game show or something like that. And she made it fun. She didn't make me nervous. And I passed it and I went to the convention center in Los Angeles. And my mother, back then, my dad had passed in 92. And so my mom would come live with us for 6 months. So she was my guest and she went with me to the convention center in Los Angeles. And she sat and watched me as I became an American citizen.
Wow.
And
Well,
I
I'm going to
still,
ask you about that, but first thing I'm
yeah,
going to do is actually show the audience that picture from the
yes,
day that you became an American citizen. They are seeing it
96.
now. It was a nice view, it looks
Yeah.
like, of
It was at
California.
the Greystone Mansion in Beverly Hills. I took my mom there so we can look all over Los Angeles. And I had my little flag waving it all proud. And it was a quite impressive day and still burned into my memory.
Yeah.
I was proud. And
I-
I remember, Bruce, when the mayor swore us in, he told us, he said, "You were not born an American. You chose to become an American. And you should be very proud." And my heart was just beating out of my chest. I was nervous. I was excited.
Right. So let
There
me
was no other way.
Right. So is it safe to assume that back around the 16, 17 years of age when you started hearing the American music, that's when you started to develop that perhaps the American dream in your mind to
Yeah.
become an American citizen? So,
Well, not so much that I would leave Germany and it would look for a better life. No, I just knew that I was married to a soldier, that eventually we would have to move to the States. And it was something I didn't mind. I was lucky enough to be in Germany for 10 years of my son's, the first 10 years of his life. But I adapted and I couldn't wait till I get my American passport. And
right?
yeah.
Excellent. So that was definitely a proud day for
Oh,
you. Now,
yeah.
explain to me how that works. Is that when you became a citizen, did Dom become a citizen at the same time?
No, Dominic had the German citizenship because he was born in Germany, and he
Right.
had American
Because
citizenship.
his
He had
dad's
dual.
right.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Automatically dual citizenship because his father was an American.
exactly.
I
And
got you.
I
Born on a base. I'm assuming.
do what now?
Was you guys born? Was he born on a base?
No, he was
No.
born in the same hospital in Nuremberg that I was born in.
Oh wow. In
Yeah, yeah,
Nuremberg. That's excellent.
Nuremberg. Yeah, he was my little bratwurst.
It was your little bratwurst. That is so funny. That is so funny. So, continuing to talk about Germany, it's Germany has been in the news a lot lately. Since we're
Yeah,
on the subject, you're a German citizen. Would you mind, letting us know exactly what your feelings are as you know, being born in Germany and seeing kind of what's been going on? There's been a
yeah,
transformation over the last,
yeah.
5 to 8 years.
Big transformation. And uh, since I would say 15 years, I go back home every May. My mom is still alive. She's 98 years old now.
Oh
So
wow.
every May we go and celebrate with her. So
Wow.
every year I would see the demise, I would see the big change, how the Germany I knew, where you could, the little town we lived in, you could leave your doors open, windows open, cars unlocked. Nobody would touch it. Nobody would rob anybody or and it started changing. It started changing when the East and West became one, when the wall went down. I was still in Germany. It started changing a little bit. And then since I'm living here in the United States and I watch how the German customs are wiped out, how Germany's changed, how when I go there, I cannot walk downtown by myself in the evening. My nieces are 18 and 21. They cannot wear tube tops and a mini skirt because they feel like it. They can't go out at night. They can't just sit somewhere in a cafe outside. They both blonde. So many incidents. Matter of fact, one of my nieces was in Cologne at New Year's Eve and barely escaped when they raped women there. and it's
Yeah.
all hidden. The media is the same thing there as it is here. Things are not talked about. Let's not talk about it. So maybe it doesn't exist. People are not aware until something happens. And then you start hearing people talk, and usually they whisper a little bit. They don't want to talk loud about it. How these refugees have more rights than Germans, how refugees get apartments, houses, cars, money, food, everything, while Germans that worked all their life and are retired sometimes have to decide between a sandwich and medication, like it is here now.
Yeah, it's seems to be a trend. It's almost scary on that end because
Yeah.
I remember the Cologne New Year's Eve incidences, and you have to pick and find actual news. Normally, it comes from people that are there that get it out before it's snuffed, but you
Yeah.
risk nowadays, actually being arrested for
Yes.
disseminating
Yes.
information like that.
And then I heard people say, well, why didn't the boyfriends of the girls that got raped, why didn't they intervene? Well, I found out how it was done. They had a herd of guys surround the couple. And then all of a sudden, they separated the couple and kept swirling around the guy, kept him away. And while they were around the girl, three, four deep, the ones in front raped her. And it didn't just happen to one or two, it happened to so many. But at night, they all pretty much with their hoodies on, they all look pretty much the same. Everybody said, well, he was dark skinned, he couldn't speak German. Um, it was horrific. It scared me. Then they came out with, well, let's wear these bracelets and you snap them, and then that lets the guys know, no, don't touch me. Really?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
wow,
Then they
wow.
told them to wear certain, what did they say? Oh, take a card and show it. And it was some kind of almost like a comical illustration of don't touch me in your own country. Then I'm watching German news, and I have friends who send me things. And I saw this clip, and it frightened me of what my home country, where my heart still is. My mom's there, my sister is there, my nieces, my friends,
Yeah, you got so much
family
family there. That's
friends.
exactly
Yeah,
why I wanted to ask you what you're
yeah,
hearing from them because that's a scary situation when you actually have your politicians telling you that you can't go out at night. And beyond that, today I saw an interview where the politician was saying that the refugees and migrants that were coming were more German than the German citizens that were saying
wow,
that it was
wow,
wrong. Yeah, it was a
wow,
politician who said that.
wow.
He said
Yeah,
they should be
well,
locked up for
yeah,
saying that the migrants shouldn't be there. And I was
yeah,
like, wow, we're so lucky in America with our freedom of speech.
yeah. And
Yeah,
even that is kind of getting a little smaller and smaller every
they're
day.
trying very hard.
Yeah.
That's
But
why
I
we're doing a
remember,
show like this tonight,
that's
Sabina.
right,
We
because
want to make
nobody's going to
sure.
stop us.
That's right. This
Right.
is a great platform. Had forgotten. I need to thank maganews.net for allowing us to be on and do this. Some call it an interview. I like to call it just a chat with Sabina.
It is.
It's so I thank you very much to Glenn at maganews.net for allowing us this forum, and I hope you guys are enjoying. So, your family in Germany, have they has any of them maybe asked about coming here?
No, my mom, she used to come here every year for 6 months, and then during the hot summer, she would be in Germany. She's too old. She doesn't want to travel. She's used to the little town where she still walks into town, gets her little bread and sandwich meat from the Metzgerei. Um,
Oh,
she's so used to it and doesn't want to leave that. My sister has roots there with her kids. No, they're hoping things change. They praying, they're hoping. And I experienced something while Anthony and I were there 2 years ago. We we were inside the house and the doorbell rang. So I went to the front door and this guy was standing there, a little darker complexion, dressed from head to toe like out of a GQ magazine, clean haircut, new Adidas shoes, everything. And he's mumbling something and say, and like he's hungry. And I knew what he was up. I kind of figured it out real quick. So I
Right.
told him, no, please leave. So he kept at me and telling me he wants money and he's hungry. And I told him to get away. So he finally left. He mumbled something else that didn't sound like, well, thank you, nice lady. His
That's funny.
face told me what he thought of me. And
Right.
he went next door to the house. And the lady gave him a sandwich, but she didn't give him money. And as he was leaving, he was saying the same, sounded like cuss words, and threw the sandwich in the bushes. So
Wow.
it's the same thing. It's a game. He wasn't hungry. He wanted money.
Wow.
But yet he was dressed better than a lot of people I've seen walk around.
And he
They
was
don't
just
have to
knocking
pay
door to
rent.
door.
Yeah. And
Wow.
they were told not to do that because there is a whole old hotel that they fixed up just for refugees. So they lived there rent free. They get money for their cell phones. Of course, we have to have iPhones. Yeah. Um, they get
I don't
money
even
for
have an
food,
iPhone.
food, for tea, for iPhones. So they pretty well taken care of for doing nothing. And a guy from a refugee from, it wasn't even from Syria. He was traveling towards Germany, and a reporter asked him, why would you leave Italy where you just now have an apartment, you have a job, you have friends? And he said, well, I want to go where Mama Merkel is. She gives more money.
Mama
Well, there you
Merkel.
go. Mama Merkel.
Wow.
And the harshest thing I've seen was a recording that somebody did undercover. It was at the Bahnhof, the railway station in Germany. You have these little hamburger joints and hot dog places. And this guy was filming an older German gentleman talking to a refugee. And the refugee told him in fluent German, we don't have to fight a war. We don't have to kill you. We rape your women, we impregnate them, and we're taking over. It, my blood froze up in my veins. And he was so calm, collected. And that older gentleman, it, he was just standing there shocked. He couldn't even believe what he heard, but that's what's happening because the media hides what's really happening, that people are getting raped, older women get robbed and pushed on the street. And
Yeah, you're correct. It's scary. That's why I asked if there was anyone that had thought it had gotten so bad that they
yeah,
would have to leave. But that's, you hear those same things on the streets of London, and to hear
yeah,
that in Germany, that's, they tell us their plan. I don't
yeah,
know why we necessarily, or they don't necessarily believe it, but they're very honest with
yeah.
what they're
And
wanting
they
to do.
showing it. Yeah, they showing it. They tell, and I've learned early on that when somebody tells you who they are and shows you who they are, you better believe them. They're
Yeah,
not changing. But it's again, and now that I've learned how it works here, it's the same thing, different name. Here it's illegals, there it's refugees.
right.
It's the same thing. People
Exactly.
still walk up to me or on Twitter or Facebook tell me, well, they're not all bad. Well, do we have to wait until a good one hurts your loved one? Do we have to wait for that? Or are we going to follow laws? And in Germany, it became this just bum rush. You go in, you get an apartment, and if you don't like it, you get a bigger apartment, and they take you to your appointments free, the taxis free. There are so many perks of being a refugee or an illegal. I was thinking about revoking my American citizenship and sneaking back in here.
Sneaking back in. Yeah, just take the train straight on through.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
just gonna sneak back in here and claim I'm a.
yeah, I gotta admit, there's been a few times when I've struggled that I thought, well, maybe I should just tell them that I'm illegal. Maybe
Yeah,
then I'll
yeah,
I'll actually be eligible for some
right.
more help
Yeah,
or
and don't
whatnot.
speak English. Don't speak English. Have them
Right.
pay for a translator.
There you go. That's right. I only speak Pig Latin. That's the only other
Yeah,
language I got. So we'll have to make it work. So Dom was 14 when you got your citizenship.
yeah.
what was he thinking about all that? And what was his reaction when you guys moved over here? What did he think about the States?
Well, when he was 10 and we had to leave the place he called home, it was hard, but I
Yeah.
could tell it was like Disneyland and Universal Studios. And I think, and Dominic and I, we were so close that at one point it didn't matter where we went as long as he was with mom. We always had a lot of fun. So moving to the States and then living on base, I made it fun. I went Disneyland and I traveled with him and made sure he acclimated well, and he did. His English was so perfect where he would speak English to you and turn around and speak German to me without an accent either way.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite amazing.
Well, that shows a really high intelligence there to be
He
able to
yes,
do that.
he was a 4.0, 4.2 student, honest student, loved by everybody, and just even in school, he would always tend to sit with the kids that nobody wanted to talk to. He would talk to the loner that sat on a bench somewhere, and so he always had that social, that compassion in him. It was quite amazing to watch him. And I remember the principal of his middle school called me to the office, and I thought, my son, he no, he's a good kid. I can't see what he did, but the guy wanted to know, how did you do this? How did you raise a guy like this? And I was floored because I thought that's what every mom, every parent does.
Well, that was one heck
But
of a compliment right there.
yes, it was. And I was really floored by that because it never was an issue to me. I just gave him that unconditional love. I never treated him like, well, you're my child, you do as I say. I got slick because I would tell him, I say, okay, you can either pick up your toys and your Legos and your cars, or you can vacuum clean the whole apartment. It worked every time, but it was never with, making him do things. He had choices, he had chores, he had a voice, whether he was 5 or 15 or 30 before he died. It was always that respect and that love between us. And we were best of friends with letting the other one be who they were and give him space. And so Dominic went through middle school, high school, and excelled in pretty much everything he did. And then in 19, was it? No, 2004, it was time for a divorce. The marriage wasn't good. Yeah, I could talk 2 days, but it's a waste of time. Anyway, I filed for divorce. And Dominic decided not to move out. He was just about to move in with some friends, have some roommates. And he said, let's be housemates, because he knew I couldn't keep the house on my own. So we split the bills. We opened an account where we both put in money for the bills and kept it even. Well, mom did a little bit more with the cooking and cleaning, but he had to
Right.
learn that there are responsibilities. If you have your own place, you can't go out every night and drink. That's just not in the budget. So he learned that way, and we had a blast because once his dad was out of the house, it was like sunshine moved in, and we laughed. He was an incredible prankster and funny guy.
Right. So he
Um,
was 22, and you guys became housemates. That you guys had
yeah,
a special relationship. I remember at 22, I didn't want to live anywhere near my mother, so
yeah,
that's
I heard
fantastic.
that, and he was. I heard that, and people asked him, why are you living with your mother? He said, why wouldn't I? She's the best friend I got.
Right.
And yeah, and we took pride in that, where the trust was there. There was no tension. At first I tried to mother him still, and I remember an incident. uh he was laying on the sofa playing Halo with his friends in England or wherever, and he was cussing up a storm. And it was a little cooler outside. So I went and asked him if he was cold. You know, the mother instinct. And he said, "No, mom, I'm good, thanks." So, of course, 2 minutes later, I'm worrying about my son freezing to death at 75 degrees. So I went up again and I said, "Baby, you sure you don't need a blanket?" And he looked at me and rolled his eyes, his big brown eyes, and he said, "Mom, I'm good." But that wasn't enough for this mother Hubbard. And I went and got a blanket 10 minutes later and put it over him. And he jumped up and told me, "Mom, stop." So I had to learn to let him be, to let him decide. If he freezes his butt off, he'll get a blanket.
Yep.
It's not up to me. And he learned when he rode his motorcycle to Barstow to visit friends. And he thought he didn't need warm clothes for that ride into the desert because, you know, the desert is hot. Well, it's not at night, it's freezing cold.
That's right.
And he learned because he had to stop at Barstow to get some thermal underwear and came home shaking and freezing and drinking hot chocolate. So we learned each other, but it was fun. His friends were my friends. They came to the house. We had pool parties. I was invited to birthday parties of his friends, and I'm there. He walks in and he said, "What are you doing here?" And, you know, we went on trips together. We went to Hawaii. We went to Germany. We both had a motorcycle. We started riding, and it was just pure joy to see this young man. And then he comes up to me. It was during the divorce in 205, maybe 206. He said, "Mom, will you go with me? I got to get my license." And I looked at him. I said, "I'm not going to stand in line at the DMV. You're going to do that all by yourself. Should have made an appointment." He said, "Nah, just come with me." Okay. Well, we didn't drive to the DMV. We drove to the Riverside Airport. He had studied to become a pilot. He loved aviation. He had a little
Wow.
flight simulator. He got his license that day. He flew his first single round with his mother by his side over
Wow.
Riverside.
Wow, that is fantastic. So that was quite the surprise for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was. And
that's amazing. It
it
sounds to
still
me that
cheers to my,
he was
yeah,
22, 23, 24 at that time.
yeah,
So, when did he develop that love of wanting to fly? And I've got a lot of pictures where I've seen him with uniforms on, where he's a volunteer
yeah.
fighter. Where did he start with those dreams of what he wanted to be, and how
He,
and where'd the flying come into that?
I think it was always in him, and he had this little corner in his room that he set up as a like a flight center, like a little geek. He had a whole flight group of guys that never met till later, and they were all flying and talking and using that lingo. He always liked that. He always was interested in aviation. He always looked for something next. He was from high school. He volunteered with the fire department and emergency relief force. He would go bring water to the firefighters, and
In high
he wanted to
school.
go and ride-alongs would come. Yeah, in high
Okay,
school,
so
and
this
then
was definitely in him.
yeah,
You know,
it's always been in him.
right?
Um, he then became a apprentice in the local Moreno Valley TV station. They did the TV for council meetings and little things. He became an award-winning editor.
Really?
Yeah, and he would run around with these cameras and the microphones. And back then, you would never believe it if you hear me now, but I'm telling you the truth. I swear on it. I used to be deathly afraid of public speaking and of microphones.
Well,
So
that
he would
is
have
hard to
acts
believe.
of walking up to me and say, "Ma'am, can you answer this?" And just hold the microphone in my face, and I would jerk back, start sweating and shaking.
Yeah, I've watched a lot, a whole bunch of videos preparing for this, especially when you were at the RNC convention. For those that don't know, Sabina did speak at the RNC convention, and you were very eloquent, and
Thank
your
you.
point got across in that small time period that they gave you. I was
Yeah.
hoping for more. I was like, give me more, but then I seen that
They
they had a
only
lot of you
gave us
guys.
that much time. We were
Right,
lucky that much time. Matter of
right.
fact, we had less time. We only had a minute and a half, and then candidate Trump told them, "No, I want them to speak a little bit longer." So because of him, we got to share a little bit more.
That's
But
excellent.
I was afraid of public speaking, and he would make fun of me, and I would watch him at the council meetings. But then even that wasn't enough for him. The challenge wasn't enough. So then he started looking into law enforcement.
Gotcha.
Well, he had a hip injury when he was about 10. And it kind of held him back a little bit. He couldn't play sports or football or anything. So he became a dispatcher in 2006, 911 dispatcher for the Riverside Sheriff's Department. And like everything else he did, and not just because I'm his mom, but he was really that good in whatever he did, whatever he touched, he did it with such compassion, with everything in him. Nothing was ever half-assed. It was just full force.
Full force.
And yeah,
I had
he,
heard he was full force in the prankster Joker way as well. So he
oh
put his
my,
heart into that as well. As a matter of fact, I believe you told me that some people will never forget, or maybe even never recover from
that could be
that.
it. That could be it. I mean,
Yeah.
he played little pranks where he would stand in a dark corner in the garage and wait for half an hour even until I walked past him and he didn't say boo. He went and had me jump. Or he would stand at a window with his face pressed against it, waiting for me to walk by and not move. And just in the corner of my eye, I would see it and then jump. It was never the typical, but the best prank he played was a friend of his came visiting from New Jersey, a guy named Tom, also a pilot. And he came to visit, stayed with us a couple of days. And Dominic said, well, we're going to go fly. We rented a plane and we're going to go fly. So they left. I stayed home. And about an hour later, the door opens up and I see Tom standing there, shaking, crying, pale. Dominic in the background, crawling on the garage floor, couldn't stand up, laughing so hard, snorting. He couldn't even explain it. I mean, what a scene! You have one crying and visibly shaking up, and the other one is laughing so hard. So I had no clue. It took me about an hour to get it out of Dominic what had happened because he couldn't stop laughing. And when he started, I started. And so
Right.
it went nuts. So I found out what happened was Dominic had arranged a few friends of his that work for the police department to pull him over while he's driving to the airport. So Tom and him sitting in the truck, they're going down the street, and Dominic gets on his phone. So Tom says, no, get off the phone. That's illegal. He said, they ain't gonna stop me. And of course, behind him, that was the sign for them. The blue lights, the sirens, they pulled him over. So they came up to the window and asked Dominic, said, okay, sir, can we get your license registration? And he handed it and he kept looking down. Now Tom Chim is just sitting there watching. They move over on, one cop goes over to Tom's window, asks him to please come on out the car. He walks out. He says, so can I see your ID? And he was known to always have cash on him. He didn't like credit cards. So he opened his wallet. There was money in there. And they said, so how long have you known this guy? Oh, I've known him for 5 years. You sure? So what were you guys doing? Well, we're going flying. We're going to the airport. Oh, is that what he calls it? So Tom now starting to shake. They handcuffed Dominic. In the meantime,
Oh
lead him
no.
to the front of the truck, have him bend over, pat him down, straight faces. Nobody cracked a face. Tom Jim is now starting to shake and sweat. So the guy says, the cop asked him, so, sir, can I ask you again how long you've known him? Really? He said, well, I've known him for 5 years. He's my best friend. So the cop says, so you didn't know he was Moreno Valley's best known male prostitute? So I wish they would have taken a picture of his face, because now Dominic is leaning over, still nobody's breaking their character. They walking past Tom. He's shaking. He don't know what to say. He don't know what to believe. And as they walk Dominic past him to the patrol car, one cop looks at Dominic and say, "Can we stop messing with your friend now, or do we have?" So that was it. Tom didn't want to go flying. He didn't. He was really, that took a toll on him. He's never been stopped by the police. So that was a whole new experience. So that was one of the pranks. And then he would turn water off while I'm in the shower, and the water to the whole house, and just stuff like that. He would have a cop car follow me with lights and pull me over and ask for my license. But I figured it out after a while. Played pranks on friends, and just everybody just loved being around, because he was the life of the party. He was everybody's best friend. People that met him within just saying hello and talking for a few minutes wanted to be around him. He was one of these people that you're drawn to. But he was very humble. I didn't know a lot of things that he's done until after his death. A homeless lady approached me at the spot where he was killed. I would go there every day. And she said, "I miss this guy." And I looked at her like I've never seen her. And I said, "You knew him?" She said, "He got me some food. He took me across the street and got me a burger and fries and something to drink, and he sat with me. He never told me. He didn't tell me where he stayed 3 days with a friend of his who had just lost her baby, because her husband was a firefighter and couldn't be home. So he took off 3 days. He got reprimanded because he called in sick. He didn't care. I started telling Dominic's story at MAD meetings where they're court ordered. And one lady came up to me crying, shaking and hugging me, and she said, "I will never drink again." And I said, "Dang, I have that much effect on you?" She said, "No, I knew Dominic. And at a party, she was drunk and angry at her boyfriend. She got in her truck and left. He followed her, made her pull over, park her car, got her home, put her in bed, and the next day left a note, call me, we'll get your car. Next day he went and got her and helped her get her car. That's the man he was. That's the man he became.
You must be very proud of that.
I am.
It's one of those things where a lot, there's a lot of people that do a lot of things and you hear about it, but when you hear later on about the
Yeah.
things that he didn't even tell his mother about because he was that much of a humble guy, it tells
Yeah.
you that his heart was truly there to serve. And
Yeah.
I know that he was an ambitious fella, obviously, and
Yeah.
he liked to go fast. That was the
Yeah.
motorcycles and the airplanes. What was he training to
Yeah.
become when the tragic incident happened?
They found, and he told me he wanted to become a motorcycle officer because one of his best friends, who happened to be the first on the scene, was a motorcycle officer, and they rode together in their free time. So he was studying for that, and his final goal for his career was to become a helicopter pilot for the Riverside Sheriff's Department. Um,
A motorcycle
he,
cop and a helicopter pilot. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, that was
that's
his goal, and I was worried when he talked about becoming a motorcycle cop and being out there, because I said, I feel good when you sit behind the console and direct it. And he saved life. He saved officers' lives by being that calm voice. By just Dominic was able to clown around, and as soon as an officer called, He became focused and zoomed in and did his job. It was just, I've been with him at his job and watched him for about 2 hours. It was incredible. I wish I could bottle that up and hand it out to some people who don't know what to do with their lives. But it wasn't just his job, it was how he lived life. Every moment of our 30 years together, we lived them without regrets. We had a few arguments when he ticked me off, when he left dishes in the sink and walked off and went out, but we never stayed mad. We always showed and told each other how much we love each other. It wasn't just, she knows. No, we said it, we showed it, we every day. Um, he went out partying with his friends. He would fly to Santa Barbara with three of his friends who were girls. He went to baby showers as the only guy. He was just that kind of guy that everybody wanted around. And if somebody needed help with moving, he was there with a truck. He didn't ask, he didn't make excuses. And even now, 6 years later, people still talk about it. They still talk about how he was that one person that was always reliable. He would listen to people. He was like a counselor. He would counsel couples, and I said, well, you're single, what you talking about? Well, he stayed single. He was kind of burned a little bit because his dad and I, it was rough, and then the divorce was really bad. And he enjoyed being single and being able to do what he wanted to do. Whether it was hanging out with mom, going to the movies. Another prank just came up. We went to the movies, and nobody sat in front of us. Usually that would tick me off, that the tallest people would sit right here, and I would, and I was wondering, the whole row was empty. And I realized he had a little fart machine with a remote. You ever see those?
Yes, I have.
He put that under the seats in front of us, and every time somebody walked up to go sit down, he let a fart rip. And they kept walking.
Wow.
Oh, he did that in a supermarket, put that machine in my purse while I'm in the checkout line, and
That
he was
is
3 aisles
awesome.
over and
Whoops.
letting that thing rip, where people just disappeared around me. And so, he had time for that. He had his own time. He traveled with friends. He loved going to Vegas with them. And it was a group of 6 or 8 of them, and they would just rip it up and have the time of their life because of their stressful job. First
Right.
responders, they get it. And I still remember, Dominic could handle any emergency, but when it came to kids or elderly people, it would tear him up. And I remember one night, it was 3 in the morning. He woke me up, and he was crying and shaking, and he just laid in bed next to me, and I held him. He came home from a party. He was the designated driver, and he took that very serious. And he witnessed a car crash and people getting out of their car on the freeway. And while he's trying to block traffic from coming at them, a young lady got run over.
Oh,
And he stayed with her while she died.
wow.
And he then later met the parents and talked with them, and it changed him. Or when a child drowned and he couldn't get them there fast enough, because he also volunteered for the fire department. I don't know how many hours he had in his day, because sometimes 24 hours didn't seem just enough. But he had that tender soul, that spirit. Um, I wish I could have cloned him. And he's still horribly missed, not just by me, but by
Yeah.
people who never even met him. But
Yeah,
they
I
had
wish we could
interact.
clone him too, Sabina. We need
Yeah,
more people like the son you raised. It's You can look at his pictures, and do have a picture montage that I will show at the end of the show.
yeah.
But you can Folks, I know you'll agree with me when you see the pictures. I was trying to go through and say, let's find the best picture for a poster. He doesn't have a bad picture. Every
No, no,
picture is the best smile. This his eyes are alive, vibrant,
yeah,
joyful.
yeah,
It was an amazing. You can feel a presence
yes,
just through pictures, and you can't. I
yeah.
can't say that about my pictures, but I can really say
I
that
don't
about yours.
Yeah. No,
It's
he had that incredible smile and his personality just came out. And he had a serious side to him, but he kind of kept that to himself. He wouldn't burden anybody. And even when I told him a lot of times, I said, "You're just such a handsome guy." He said, "Oh, mom," because he struggled with weight and he wanted to work out. And matter of fact, he signed up with one of his cop friends to work out. And 3 days after his death, they were supposed to start because he was tired of having sleep apnea. And the doctor telling him he might have to have surgery, it scared him to death because he was an emotional eater. Um, like me at that time, I blew up to over 200 pounds. And but we had each other and we had that bond where no matter what happened, he knew he was safe with mom and I knew I was safe with him. And I started dating and he was so overprotective and every time I went somewhere he showed up and stood right there next to me and good
That's my
grief,
mama.
who's the mom? Who's the dad here now? He never liked anybody and I thought it was because he always thought I was too good for them. He smelled that they weren't good. He didn't want another one like his dad to be around. And when I met Anthony, who is my fiance and love of my life for 9 years, going on 9 years, he liked him. He sat with us for dinner. And Anthony lived in San Diego. He would come down on the weekend. And Dominic stuck around. And I was like, wait a minute. What's up with that? They would tinker on the motorcycles. They would sit and talk. He would ask for advice. He'd sit for dinner with us. And he didn't even do that with his own father. And those two bonded because Anthony is like Dominic, gentle, kind, doesn't try to change anybody, that unconditional. And so they felt that in each other. And Dominic surprised both of us when he asked Anthony one day and he said, "Man, why don't you just transfer to Moreno Valley or Riverside?" Anthony worked for the post office and stay with us. My mouth dropped wide open. I
Right?
never expected that. And Anthony told him, he said, I'm trying to transfer, but I would want to get my own apartment. You're the man of the house here. We keep it. And that respect that they showed each other was so beautiful to watch. And we took rides together because Anthony had his motorcycle. Dominic would be up front. They had me in the middle and Anthony in the back. And we did our tours into the desert or to the beach. Had the best of times. And um, I believe now Dominic knew he wasn't going to be old. He wasn't going to get old in age. And I know God knew I needed Anthony in my life because the 3 years that they were getting to know each other, and Dominic told me, he said, "You're going to marry this guy. I walk you down the aisle." I said, "Yeah, that ain't going to happen. I ain't getting married no more." Well, yes, I will. But he knew it. He felt it because both of them were so much alike, so gentle. And um, God knew why Anthony came in my life because everybody else would have ran after that happened because it changed me who I was. Now I have BD and AD before Dominic and after Dominic.
Right.
And
We're at
he
that.
didn't run. And Dominic knew that. Yeah.
Right. That's amazing. So I mean that pretty much brings us to uh July 12th, 6 years ago. Can you tell us
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
beforehand and what transpired that day,
Whew.
or before that
I
day
go
as well?
Yeah, I go to July 11th. Anthony, every 2 years they have a family reunion at a different city. And this year it was in Atlanta. And he was so excited to show me off to his family that would come from all over the United States. They have a large family. And we made plans to fly to Atlanta, do their family reunion, come back. And on July 11th, Dominic took Anthony and myself to the airport in Ontario. So we're driving, we're clowning around. Anthony was telling him, say, man, we put up some cameras so we know what you're doing while we're gone. We're watching you. And just having fun. And on the way to the airport, we stopped at a fast food joint, and I did the mother thing and asked him if he was hungry, and he said no. And I said, well, how about French fries? He said, no, Mom. I said, well, how about half of my hamburger? And he said, Mother, stop. We sat, we laughed. He took us to the airport, and we got out of the truck, and he put the suitcase on the sidewalk. And I walked towards him, and I stumbled over the sidewalk, and I fell into him, and he grabbed me with his bear hug, Dom hug, and twirled me around, made me dizzy, gave me a kiss on the forehead, squeezed me, told me he loved me, have a good time, enjoy. And I told him I love him, and I see him walk to the driver's side, get in his car, throw a kiss and wave, and say, love you. And that was the last time I saw my child alive. Um, I didn't know, thank God. So I waved as he left. We walk in, we fly, it was night. And we get to Atlanta in the morning. It was so early, and we got to, we were invited to stay at Anthony's cousin's house, but we didn't want to wake him up at early in the morning. So we went for breakfast to a Waffle House. And as we were leaving, we just barely get into the rental car, and it was like somebody unplugged me, and I lost all energy. I just dropped. And Anthony ran, picked me up, put me in the car, and he said, what in the world happened? I said, I don't know. I can barely talk. It was something I've never felt. I learned later that that was the exact moment my son died at 5:45 in the morning in California. I didn't know. We went to the house. Anthony woke his cousin up, and he said, she's not feeling well. Something's wrong with her. I said, I just want to sleep. So I laid down, and he had a big house. It was a big mansion. And they had the guest quarters downstairs. We parked the car behind. I went in, laid down. My phone kept buzzing. And I guess I fell asleep, woke up, and I saw my phone full of messages. Please call. This is Elena, Dominic's best friend. This is Chris, his best friend. Please call. But I'm like, oh my God, that boy done wrecked his bike and probably in a full body cast. Oh, I'm going to have some fun with him. And I started getting really nervous. It was the weirdest feeling ever. And Anthony was upstairs. They had a movie theater in the top of the house. I've never been to that house. I ran through this house like a maze, found him, and he still remembers how I ran towards him, my eyes wide open, pale. I said, something happened to Dominic. I can't listen to my voicemail. It won't let me. I don't know what's going on. And we went downstairs, and I called dispatch, and I know all these kids. And the young lady that answered, I said, this is Dom's mom. Can I talk to him? And she said, and they were really well. I said, just let me talk to him. What's going on? She said, well, let me get the chief. So I knew something happened. But your mind just don't let you go there. That's not possible. The chief came on, and I always get reminded when you watch a movie and you see the cop tell the mother, I'm so sorry to inform you your child has been killed, or your husband.
Right.
Those are the words I heard over the phone from Dominic's boss. And I hung up, and I screamed, and Anthony and we just collapsed in the kitchen. And I kept screaming, that's a mistake, can't be. You go into denial because I just saw him. I just hugged him. No, they got the wrong one. So they called back. And Dominic's two best friends from the fire department, Tim and Jared, they had gone and had to identify him. That that was not left up to me. Thank God they took over. Um, so it was true. So now we're in a big house in Atlanta. Families coming in excited to meet Anthony's girl, and they see a chaos, me losing it, screaming, crying on the floor, and nobody knows what to do. They whispering, her son got killed this morning. And then I went into shock. And I remember sitting there and they gave me water. I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't eat, I didn't want to breathe.
Right.
And
And you were
Anthony,
far
knew.
away from where
Yeah.
the accident happened. What
And God
exactly?
made it happen that way. I know that was God protecting me, because I would have been at the scene. You couldn't have stopped me.
Right.
But
Was he on
so
his
they
motorcycle?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so we got a flight back, and I still remember the stewardess giving us each a big bottle of water and a big towel each, because we were crying and wailing on an airplane for 5 hours. The plane was delayed an hour to start. And people started wondering, and she kept telling me she just lost her son and it's okay. And I didn't care, it didn't matter. And Bruce, as we landed and I'm walking out in Ontario, I'm thinking, uh-uh, I'm gonna kill that boy, because that's the worst prank he ever played. I don't know, spend extra money. No, that's not cool. I was in such denial, and I'm walking out and
Understandable.
come down the stairs, and I see three of his friends standing there, and I knew, and I think I passed out. So we get in the truck, and I didn't want to go home. It was My boy wasn't there, so I needed to go to the accident scene, and they were like, "You sure?" I said, "I need to know. I need to know what happened." So they took me there, and I see they had washed all the blood away, everything, but the marks were there where the truck was and the motorcycle, and nothing made sense. We went to the house, and all of our friends and his friends were there, and everybody just standing there, bawling their eyes out. And I went to his room. I laid on his bed. I smelled his pillow. His dog. He has a dog that he brought from the pound. He was completely lost, and we laid there and trying to make sense of it. And what I learned was that Dominic left the house at five, whatever, 30, 35, and took his motorcycle, rode down the same street. It's a long street going down to the freeway. And there were two Marines in a car going to the local Air Force Base, March Air Force Base. And they were behind him. And he stopped at the first light. It was yellow, but he stopped. He was a good rider. He never took risks, whether he was flying or riding or driving. And then the light turned green. He kept going, and a truck, a red truck, little Toyota, turned in front of him, and he was trying to avoid it, and he swerved a little bit to the right, but he took the full brunt of it. And the coroner, which was important to me, I needed to know whether my child suffered right there on the sidewalk. He told me no. He died on impact. And but I didn't know was when he was hit so hard by that truck, he was thrown into a wall on the sidewalk, and that's where he laid. And one of the Marines stayed with him, covered him with a jacket, and talked to him, to the point where I said, "Did he still answer?" He said, "No, but I needed to talk to him, let him know it's okay." And the other guy ran after that guy who killed my child, because he ran away.
He hit him and
But
run.
funny, yeah, but he was never charged with a hit and run. So it still didn't make sense. And at that point, Bruce, I still thought it was an accident. Things happen, accidents do happen.
Right.
So as time progressed, so now we're looking at coffins and caskets and um, uh, services, and his friends took care of all of that. He was well loved by fire department, so they arranged a church, and everybody did everything. I didn't have to do nothing. I only picked out the casket and the urn because Dominic and I had talked when I crashed my motorcycle about 3 months earlier, real bad. And he said, "So, would you want to be cremated or buried? Because I don't want to be in this town if your burial plot is here. And then I don't want to leave. I want to be free to go." And I said, "Well, cremation would work." So he said, "I like that too." And I told him I don't want to talk about it, but he said that way I could always have him with me. And I do in this little locket. I always wear this. And then,
So his friends at the fire department
yeah,
stepped up. You told me a couple days ago that this was his group of people that took these calls at Riverside. So
yeah,
it happened in Riverside. He was probably on his way to work.
yeah, he was.
And
And they were waiting for him.
can you tell me about that a little
Oh,
bit of what was they? You pretty much let me know that they were affected in a really big way as
big time.
well.
Yeah. He was running late. Well, briefing at Riverside was a little bit before 6 o'clock. Well, 5:45 he was here. So he wasn't at the station. They were waiting for him. And then a call came in, two, three, four calls came in. And the young lady that took the call entered the license plate number. Well, if you work for the sheriff's department, police, law enforcement, your license plate, your name is confidential. So when she ran the numbers, she saw confidential and she said, "No, that couldn't have been. No, Dominic's, he's about to come in here. No, no, no." She did something so she could see the name. She entered it again and his name popped up. And everybody was behind her just waiting. Let that not be him. Because he's not here. He's prompt. He would never be late. And it was him. And they had people dropped, people left, went into shock. Um, and they had to bring in dispatchers from other centers. They couldn't handle it. And that young lady who took that call, she never went back to work. She couldn't handle it. She's now becoming an attorney to fight this, to work against illegal immigration. The first responder was a police officer that knew Dominic. His best friend, a motorcycle cop, came up, saw Dominic's motorcycle, and he still had his helmet on. And no, no, no. They all went into shock. They couldn't do anything. They had to call highway patrol in order to take over. The fire department shows up. That was his crew, his station where he played Nintendo with them. They covered him with an American flag and they didn't wait for the coroner van. They transported him on the fire truck with honors and had the police follow. So they gave him all the honors, but these guys, these strong police officers and firemen that's seen it all, done it all, they couldn't handle it because they loved him so much. There are babies named after him now. And so it affected so many. And then people started posting it on Facebook. And somebody said, "Take it off. She doesn't even know yet." And I'm glad they did. They just took it all off. And but Bruce, while all this is going on, and now I have to I have to pick out an urn for my son, for my only child, the one who was supposed to. I walk down the aisle. He walks me down the aisle. I'll have grandchildren that I will gift with loud instruments that drive him crazy. All the toys I saved from his childhood, his Legos, forget it. I have nobody else to pass it on to. I'll never be a mother-in-law. I'll never be a grandmother. I won't know if he would have been the best helicopter pilot in the world, but I'm still in my mind thinking accident. Okay, so the guy made a fast turns, didn't see him, all that. Until one of the police officers walked up to me because they heard that the DA charged this guy with a misdemeanor without gross negligence. And he was right under the legal drunk limit, was right under it. So they couldn't charge him with a DUI. And this officer, while we were every night, there were 20, 30, 50 people at the spot where he got killed with lights and candles. And they had the whole wall full of messages to him and little mementos and bears, teddy bears and all that. And this officer walked up and he said, listen, you need to check into this. The guy who killed Dominic was not a citizen. And I still, at first, it didn't register because I knew about illegals. And what happened is the street right around the corner from where he got killed, there's a Home Depot. We know illegals are on the other side of Home Depot or Lowe's looking for work. And that's what happened. The guy came up the street with his old unregistered, uninsured truck. He saw a van picking up illegals. So he needed to park his truck. He raced in front of Dominic, killed him in order to get into that van. So once I heard that, I asked the DA, because the DA had told me, let's not go to trial. It's best if we just have a hearing. It's easy, da, da, da. So now I'm asking him, I say, he's an illegal. Well, yeah.
And that's a hit and run.
No. Yeah, I asked him that. He said, no, he didn't get away. I said, oh, because he didn't get away, he's not charged with hit and run. Because the Marine brought him back. And so misdemeanor without gross negligence. And I'm asking this DA, I said, so why is it without gross negligence? So now I got to come back to how everything works out, how it's supposed to. The news came the day he died. They wanted to do just a little story. Somebody got killed, blah, blah, blah. But they saw the masses of people and candles. So they figured out there was something bigger. They talked to people. They found out he was like the mayor of Moreno Valley. Everybody knew him. So they came to the house and they interviewed me. I looked like death warmed over. And they love to shove the cameras right in your face at your worst time.
Yes. And
Don Rosenberg watched me on TV. Don Rosenberg lives in Los Angeles, Westwood. No, not Westwood, anywhere in Los Angeles. He lost his son, Drew, 2 years prior to an illegal alien in San Francisco on motorcycle versus truck. He saw my story and heard me talk, and he realized, he knew it wasn't illegal before I knew it, just from the way I described it. And he contacted the producer to have them give me his number. I called him, he has contacts, and he found out that the illegal who killed my child had 2 felonies, armed robbery. Matter of fact, I have it in front of me. Armed robbery, grand theft. That was in 2008. He pled guilty to 1. They made a deal with him. That DA made a deal. So it was guilty on 1. The other one was dismissed. He got 3 years probation. Illegal, 2 felonies, and he gets probation.
He should have been deported with the felony immediately.
Yeah, well, he not immediately, but a little while after he was deported, he came back.
Oh, through our porous border.
Oh, yeah. Well, go there and come right over. In 2010, he was driving under the influence. Illegal, 2 felonies, well, 1 felony by now. Driving drunk, no license, nothing. He got probation. While he was on probation, he got busted again for drunk driving. And Riverside, what did they do? Give him probation again. And then 5 weeks later or 7 weeks later, he killed Dominic.
They completely failed you.
Absolutely. And the DA knew him and the judge knew him. I didn't know that. So now I'm dealing with a hearing and a judge that told me, well, um, I if I would have known more about this, I wouldn't have made a deal with him to give him 9 months and 5 year probation. Well, clearly probation worked so well with this guy. And the guy was pretty cocky. They had him in the Riverside jail. Anthony took me out of town for a couple of days because I was losing it. I was losing my mind.
Right.
So he took me to Santa Barbara, and while we're there, he gets a phone call and his face changed. And I picked it up and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Nothing, nothing. Just give me your phone. We're not going to have any phones the next couple of days." And I said, "No,
Uh-oh.
no, something's up. Let me know, because if not, I'm going straight home." The illegal alien was able to bail out of jail, out of ICE hold, with the order of a judge, a federal judge, for $10,000 cash. He's a day laborer. He has no money. He doesn't speak English. So
$10,000 cash.
$10,000 cash. He walked out. The biggest flight risk. So when I heard that, I said, he's never going to show up for the next hearing. He's gonna go wherever he came from, Guatemala. Nope. That guy was so arrogant because clearly he gotten away with 2 felonies, 2 DUIs, 1 deportation. Nobody touches him. He came back, and we had the victim's impact statements. The whole courtroom was crying. The illegal guys, I won't say his name, I just can't.
Yes.
The SOB.
There you go.
His family was sitting on the left side. They were dogging me. They were just looking at me like it was my fault that their poor child was now here. He didn't speak English, so we needed translators constantly. Of course, government pays for it. And he stands in front of the judge like this, praying hands, and praises the judge. And it was like somebody pranking me. "Oh, I'm so glad you're my judge, and you're so wise. What a wise man, and you're just so good." And Judge, I'm just want to tell you that God gives life, God takes life, and I was only on my way to work.
Wow.
He never even owned it. He never apologized. He never said, I didn't mean to." Nothing. That arrogant. And they led him away in handcuffs. And it was some of Dominic's friends who worked the courthouse as well. So you again had these grown men, tears streaming down their faces, standing there. And the judge was so flippant about it. He would have given him, but he didn't. He could have given him 365 days. Well, later I learned if he would have given him 365 days, that would have meant immediate deportation. But anything under, nah, we got you.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I walked out of that courtroom. I lost it. I broke down.
Stunned.
I
They
knew
failed you
system
again.
fails. Yeah.
They
Oh,
failed
it
you
comes
again.
one more time. One more time. When he was released 35 days from jail. After 35 days, he was released. And thank God, by then I gained a little bit of strength. I learned a little bit more about what was going on. I still didn't know the whole story. And I started getting loud. And I wasn't going to shut up. And we had a reporter from Press Enterprise, Brian Rokas, who stayed with us and who reported it just like I told him, didn't change anything. And I found out that he was picked up, he was put on ice hold again. An ICE agent called me anonymously and told me they heard about Dominic's case. They heard what a good guy he was. And they are tired of hearing this and seeing this. He said, "I want you to know where he is." Because they usually don't tell you. He's in Adelanto in the immigration detention center. I never heard of that place. It's out in the desert past Victorville, hour and a half from our house. We drove out there. And for a year and a half, Anthony and I went there almost every week and sat there to make sure they knew I'm not going anywhere. He will be deported. We befriended another ICE agent that worked there, and he took a liking to us. He informed us, and then he called us finally and said, we're on the way to the airport. He's being deported. I know he's back. We have close sources that are looking for him. He's back, and I'm afraid
He's back
that one
again.
day I'm gonna see a picture on TV, that face with a mole, and somebody else's child has been killed or injured or maimed, whatever. I learned that he spoke fluent English, of course, that he tried to apply for asylum while he was in the detention center. And thank God the judge, who I wrote a letter to, didn't let that go through. But I also found out, and that was under the Obama administration, that at times in these detention centers, they open up the back door and let them out because they overcrowded. They don't know what to do with them. And so Anthony and I made sure that this guy was not just going to walk out. He would have to come across the border again if he wanted to. But
Did you say it took a year and a half to get him deported?
Yeah.
Wow.
He had more rights than you and I. I couldn't sit in his hearing. I couldn't sit in it. I had to sit out in the waiting room. And I had to sit in a room that was like a bigger bedroom. It was steel, like a steel cage. And I would sit in there while you had the illegals that were imprisoned there or held there. Their families would come visit, and you knew the families were illegal. So I'm sitting right in between all this, trying to hold it together. But we knew we had to. Bruce, when I got to touch my son the last time, this is a picture. These are my son's dead hands, and my hand touching him one more time. That's in the morgue. And when I kissed him for the last time and noticed the scar from when they did an autopsy, I promised him he will never be forgotten and his death will not be in vain. I will do something from it. And at first, like I said, I thought it was an accident. So it was drunk driving, and I worked with MAD until I realized they got illegals going there for their court-ordered thing. So I couldn't do that anymore. But through that, and I learned to speak publicly and just share. And so everything just came as it was supposed to happen.
Yeah, I noticed when I was going through, and trying to study what happened and whatnot, that you had written a letter to President Obama, and it was the letter was pretty self-explanatory to me. If I'm sure that was the time you were starting to really discover your voice. If you want to tell everybody why you wrote a letter, what prompted you to write a letter to President Obama, and then tell us a little bit of what it said.
Right. Well, before I did that, I was asked by Jessica Vaughn. She works in DC for CIS. It fails me right now. Anyway, she called. She asked me if I would testify in front of a judiciary hearing. Goldblatt and Trey Gowdy held it, and Jamil Shaw, who also lost his son in Los Angeles. We both were invited. We spoke. That was a big deal, but there were no cameras. Nobody cared what we had to say. And so I started picking up more about illegals and what they're doing here and how bad it really is. And then I hear on the news that then President Obama invited illegals to the White House. And they were teachers. So he honored teachers that overcame difficulties, and it
Being
pissed
illegal?
me off.
Being illegal?
Yes,
Wow.
I'm thinking.
To the White
I
House?
yes, I can't hug my child anymore because of an illegal, not because of a reckless driver with a license and insurance. No, because of somebody who don't care about our laws and does what he wants, regardless of how many times he got busted. And then you have a president who invites illegals into the White House. That just blew my mind. So I got busy and I wrote him a letter and I asked him, why? Why can't I mean we were in DC. They know when we're there. And you wouldn't meet us. You wouldn't talk to us. But yet you invite illegals to the White House. And I never heard back. So then I went a step further. I wrote to Michelle Obama, mother to mother. And I reminded her how much she must enjoy hugging her kids every night. Because I don't get to do that anymore. I have a flipping urn. I have his ashes here. I have an urn I take with me right here. When I go to DC, I put that in their face. Said, that's my son in here. Tell me about borders and separation. Anyway, so I
Right.
wrote to her and I was surprised I got a letter back. And it was a form letter. Well, dear Mrs. Durden, and thank you for contacting us. And I was so insulted. I said, they didn't
Wow.
even read my letter. It's just
Wow.
they file it in that round, the round file where they shred everything and send me a form letter and they think I'm going to be quiet. I wrote a letter back and I told them, I said, the next time somebody tells you about a deceased loved one, maybe start a new form letter where it at least says, I'm so sorry for your loss, and then tell us all about the other stuff he's doing.
Wow.
And I got a call. A couple of days later, I said, forget it. I'm not dealing with this. And I got a letter back. I got a call and it was a blocked number. And I picked up the call and it was like, this is Catherine. I'm First Lady's assistant, and we wanted to apologize. You were never supposed to get that form letter. And she's so sorry for your loss, and she will write to you personally. And it was at that point, it was like, yeah, a little late. Nah, don't worry. Don't, put her stamp, handwritten stamp on some other letter, forget it. So I got a letter and it talked about so sorry for your loss, but it lost its meaning
Yeah.
because you know,
They sent you a
um,
form letter. I mean,
yeah,
after writing the president and the first lady. Yeah.
yeah.
It had definitely
So
lost its luster, and you could tell
yeah,
it sounds to
it
me like
mattered.
they were like, oops, we better send something to
Yeah, that's
appease this
exactly
lady.
what it felt like. Yeah. And so it lost its meaning. But now I'm hearing about more victims. I'm watching on TV another mom in Arizona burying her son. I met Jamil Shaw who lost his son. So through him I learned more and meeting. And then now, okay, I'm getting busy on Facebook. I'm getting busy on Twitter. Not Twitter yet. I haven't started Twitter.
Right.
And then I noticed people that were around, they didn't like for me to become political. But there was no choice.
Right.
If I wanted to tell my son's story and be faithful to that, it gets uncomfortable. It gets ugly and nasty and dirty, and it's politics. I can't stay away. I can't make that look pretty, wrap it up with a little bow. And so people started disappearing. And I learned that when tragedies strike, whether it's this or some other tragedies, you learn who your real friends are.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's very few of them. It's a small circle. And strangely enough, Anthony, he stuck by me because he knew I might do myself in, that I might kill myself. He was worried about that. Because Dominic was it. My family is in Germany. My son was the only family I had.
Yeah.
So friends left, and Dominic's friends stuck around. His co-workers, his friends, they would come by, they would make sure, they would take us places. And matter of fact, talking about taking places, Dominic had planned a Euro trip with 4 of his co-workers and friends to go to Munich Oktoberfest, Rome, Paris, London. He had his part all paid up for. They had apartments everywhere. And he died. And 3 months later was the trip. His friends took me with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they asked me at first if I would go, because if Dominic can't make it, the next best thing is his mom. And I
Right.
knew some of them. And I said, I can't do it because now Dominic's death, there's the house, the bills, he had bills. I can't afford that. And one of the ladies, she told me, she said, Dominic told her that he listened to mom. Because mom told him whenever he books a flight or a trip over $1,000 to take out insurance. It's just a couple of bucks, but if you get sick, you can't go. Okay, you don't lose that much. So they were able to switch the flight and put me in there. But I still didn't have money enough. So they said, well, we got you. We pay for it. No, I can't go like that. I can't. So this green bracelet right here is
Hmm.
6 years old. His co-workers at dispatch had these made and gave them out to police, fire, and donations came in, and they handed me an envelope with $2,500 to
Wow.
go on that trip and try to have a good time for him. So I
Wow.
had to go, and
That's
it was the hardest trip to be in Munich at the Oktoberfest, where he would have been drunk with a couple of beers, probably wearing lederhosen and yodeling, and being there with his friends where he was supposed to be, and then going to Rome on a train and being in Rome, and I carried his ashes with me, and everywhere we went to the Sistine Chapel, we went to the Eiffel Tower, we went to Buckingham Palace, and we left a little bit of ashes everywhere we went. So there were some incredible, I don't even have a word for it, how everything went from the time of his death to now, where people that I didn't think would be around stayed around. The people that I thought would be there took off. They were gone. They couldn't handle it. Somebody came back 2 years later. They saw me on TV and they said, "Oh, you better now. I come around. Let's have dinner." No, I don't want to be around you. I don't want to be around people that bail when it gets a little harder. And
exactly.
I like to tell people when, because people would say, I don't know what to say. There's nothing you can say. You don't have to say nothing, but you can come up to me and say, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say, and give me a hug. I'm not expecting you to fix it. Even
Right.
for Anthony, it was so hard not to constantly say something, but just being there. When I fell apart, he was there to pick me up. When I couldn't see straight because my face was so swollen from crying, he would bring a washcloth. He would make sure I eat it. So I learned people came and they took the dogs for a walk. Some people went and took my bills and paid for them. Things I wasn't thinking about because I didn't even know what year it was. So, but then with a visit to DC and the letter to Obama, I got a little bit wiser and a little bit more knowledgeable about illegals. And I'm trying with the years because so much happened since then. Then I got a call, and and it was somebody from the candidate Trump's team, and they called and they asked if I could meet Donald J. Trump in Los Angeles on Saturday, and I was just preparing an anniversary at the house. Every year on his death, I would have a big open house. I cooked for days and put up his tent and his Legos for the kids, the pool wide open. Everybody would come, hundreds of people come through to just talk about him and remember him. So it was 2 days before that. It was June 10th, 2015.
So
And
5 days before he announced. Okay.
yeah, well,
Or 6 days.
uh, was did he? No, I'm mixed up the days because when he announced it, I heard it on TV, and that was a drastic change for me.
Yeah, why don't you
And I
tell us
have,
about that? Your state
have
of
to give
mind
back
was
to that.
not good at that
No,
time,
no,
and you heard
I was.
President Trump.
Yeah, I knew I was. There was another anniversary. I was gonna cook, have all his friends there, but I lost the will to live. I realized everything I was missing. I'm in the house where we had so much fun. I didn't want to do this alone anymore. I wanted to be with him. And I planned my suicide. And I had it planned down to the T. There was a road, a back road with a steep hill. I knew I would drive my car like it was an accident, go over the cliff, and just done. And poor Anthony had no idea because you become a good actress to act like everything's okay, you're good, but inside you're just screaming. And so I knew when and where. And that day when Donald Trump announced his candidacy, I was still a Democrat. I didn't care about politics. Now walking through my living room and the TV was on, and I see him come down the escalator, and I'm thinking, oh, are they doing a new Apprentice? That was the first thing that came to my mind. And as I'm walking, I hear him talk that he's running for president, and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, whatever. And then he said something, illegal immigration. And it stopped me dead in my tracks. I fell on my knees and I looked up and I said, God, is this what you're trying to tell me? And it just stopped me. There was no more thought of suicide because I knew finally somebody speaking about this. I had no idea that I would meet him. I would speak at the RNC or at rallies, that I would go to the White House, that I would be at the Oval Office. I had no idea. That wasn't even in my thought. It's just finally somebody talking about this issue.
Right.
Tired of the media just disappearing and not talking about it. Because I tried to contact TV, radio. Nobody wanted to talk to me because now it went from Dominic got killed by a drunk driver. Dominic got killed by an illegal with 2 felonies, 2 DUIs, and 1 deportation, and should have never happened.
That's right.
And so he saved my life that day because nothing else would have stopped me. And then on June 10th, as I'm getting ready for the anniversary, I get the phone call if I would like to meet uh, Mr. Trump would like to meet me in Los Angeles. And I'm like, yeah, right. I thought it was pranking me. And I hung up.
Wow. You hung
Yeah,
up.
I really thought it was just a prank. So I hung up and um, they called back, thank God. And they said, no, it's for real. We would like for you to come to the to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in Los Angeles. And I was like, oh my God. So we went, Anthony and I went, and there were 3 other angel families there. And we got seated in a little conference room, and the door opened up. And it was really like, oh, he was he's so larger than life, and he was just above ground. He was just floating in. It was like light behind. It was weird. Such a big
Right.
personality.
Yeah, I felt
And there,
that 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
So I was
yeah, I
within
know.
6, 8 feet of him, and yeah, you're
It's
right. That you explained it to a T.
it's such a presence where you hear music in the background, and but he came in. They closed the door behind him. There were no bodyguards. There were no nothing. It was just him. He hugged each of us, and then he sat at the head of the table, and he wanted to know our stories. So he sat with us for an hour and a half and listened to each one of us. And he didn't cut us off. And that man has such a presence where he's right there with you. He's not talking to you and looking past, and looking at his watch, and right there intensely. He cried with us, he laughed with us. And when we were all done talking, he mentioned, he said, "So what I gather is nobody listens to you. The media doesn't want to talk about you." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "We'll change that." We're like, "What?" He
Wow.
walked with us in the next room where the media was stacked. And he got on the podium and he told them, he said, "Well, I brought friends of mine and they will tell their stories of their lost loved ones." And one by one, the media couldn't run away, they couldn't shut it out. And by then I didn't know about CNN and Fox. I thought they all told the truth, like the news are. Yeah, wow. Anyway,
Right.
um, he told them, listen to their stories. And I got to tell the complete story. And we said our goodbyes. And before I even got in my car, Anthony went and got the car. Before I even left the hotel, CNN was on the phone.
Oh, really?
Wait a minute, where were you for about 3 years or however long it was? So
Right.
now they wanted to talk to me. "Oh, we'll send you a car. We have you at the studio." I said, "Okay." I had no clue what all this was about. So they picked me up the next morning. Now, mind you, that's a day before the anniversary. I'm still raw.
Right.
And they had me at CNN in the studio, and I started to realize they wanted to hear my story, but they wanted to put their little spin on it. Because down further on with other interviews, I was asked by one, it was either MSNBC, and I'm surprised that was even on that one, because I don't think any other Angel mom or Angel family ever made it on there, because they surely don't want to hear our stories. But I
Right.
was asked, "So, do you really think that Mr. Trump can build a wall?" And I looked at him like, "Really? Do you know what he did as a business? He built 95-story buildings. So, yeah, I think he can build a wall." And I learned now slowly how the media was trying to manipulate. But I was still fresh. I was still not really into politics. But now I'm listening to Hillary Clinton. And I hear her talk about what she will do for illegals and refugees.
Hmm.
Bruce, Anthony, and I got in the car, drove down to the registrar office, and became Republicans that day.
Wow.
Because
That
I said, I will support President Trump. And I knew I was going to vote for him, but I wasn't even in a frame of mind to change parties, but I knew I needed to change. So we became Republicans. And then I started going to a demonstration. There, people would tell me about different things happening, and I would go. But it, I realized how ugly those were and how staged they were. And one was in Marietta, California, and we heard that there were illegals. We would be bussed in, and we were going to stop that.
right.
Okay, so I had my sign with Dominic's picture, and we went there. And the first day was civil. The opposition was on their side, we on ours, and they were just yelling at. Of course, I was called racist and Nazi, and I held Dominic's picture up. I mean, here it is, and I said, "Racist? Come on, really? Try
Yeah.
try something a little bit more accurate." Okay,
Right.
then they heard my accent, so then I became a Nazi and KKK and whatever.
Wow.
Um, and the media interviewed me because they saw my sign. And we went home that night after the first day, exhausted. And we went through all the stations and nothing. Not one of them showed any of us talking about this. But they had others that talked, these poor kids on the bus. There were no kids on the buses, they were all grown men.
Right.
Um,
And you actually had to experience holding a sign
yeah.
up with your child that had
Yeah.
been killed, and they were. That's the left, ladies and gentlemen. They yell at angel moms. I mean, we can get
Yeah.
into. We could probably do a whole nother show on the
Oh,
hate texts and
oh my
messages that
God.
you've received. And
Yeah.
I don't want to go there right now. Maybe we'll talk about that in a few. But
Sure.
I know for a fact I've seen some of your messages of people that have been extremely hateful to you for coming
Ugly.
out and speaking out about your son and how the illegal immigration has affected your life personally. So
Exactly.
for me,
And
it's
it was,
disgusting.
yeah, and it was there too. And so then the media, I noticed, okay, they're not talking about it. The second day we went there, now the crowd that they brought in, which I learned later, they find people in Los Angeles that don't know what to do with their day, homeless, whatever. They give them $25, $30, a sandwich and some water, put them in a bus, bring them to these, whether it's a rally, demonstration, and tell them, create as much chaos as you can. I
Wow.
didn't know. They had, most of them had no clue why they were there, but they got paid, so they went acted ugly. So the second day, now here are a few reporters, they want to talk, and I said, forget it. You never talked about it yesterday. You already asked me. And I witnessed something that shook me out of my little bobblehead bubble that I thought the media was fair. What you hear is what's really happening. And the opposition had a guy, he was holding up a sign saying, these are the people that clean your toilets, that get your fruit from the fields, and we got to have compassion, and these poor families only coming for a better life. And I'm looking at those signs and thinking, well, why in the hell did I come as a legal immigrant and go through all of this?
Right.
I wanted a better life for my son, and now look at where we at. You still can't break the law. I don't care from what country you come from and how bad it is. You just can't sneak into anybody's place.
Right.
And he was an agitator, and he kept egging on people. And then whenever the camera panned to him, he put on this little sorry face and held his sign up, and he said, these poor families.
Oh my goodness.
And the camera faded away, moved away to another crowd. They started fighting. And the same guy looked at a father who was there with his 15-year-old daughter and his wife on our side protesting for Americans. And he went like this to be covered from the camera. And he said, I'm going to F your daughter.
What?
And I
Holy
heard that.
cow.
Now the guy went off and they started fighting. The cameras come back, and this
Of
guy who
course.
started it went like, ah, you see how they treat us brown people? They just hurting us. It was like somebody had put me in a movie and I had no idea what, it was just crazy. Police everywhere, helicopters. Of course, the more fights, the cameras would be right in there, in your face.
Right.
Um,
Right. It's exactly what Veritas exposed with
yes,
people being placed in Trump lines to
yeah,
start fights. They've actually
exactly,
placing people
yeah,
at angel mom rallies and angel, dads and people that are trying to
yeah.
stop illegal immigration. That is disgusting behavior.
To has us, and the things that were said about my, somebody told me that I'm glad your effing N dot 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 son is dead because now he's skinny and white.
Wow.
You know, you can call me anything you want. You can go off on me and insult me. It'll come off like I'm Superwoman and the bullets flying off me. But you're not talking about my child. And every parent, most parents become these, we're the protectors. And
That's
I'm
right.
not going to stop protecting my child because he's dead.
That's right.
You only bring out the strength in me that I didn't think I had. So everyone that's been ugly and nasty, all those messages, they might have gotten my knees to shake a little bit and my heart to hurt a little bit more, and I had to do this. But I'm coming back even harder, louder, and more fierce. So anybody out there that want to throw some nasty towards me, come bring it. I don't care. And I told one guy, I said, "Do you really think your words hurting me? I lost my only child. I
Right.
lost my best friend, the guy that was going to drive me around when I'm old and feeble and have to feed me applesauce. That's who I
Right.
lost.
Right.
And you think you're going to hurt me with your words? You
Right.
couldn't even hurt me physically because the pain that's with somebody who lost a child like that is, it never stops. We
Right.
just get used to it. That's the only thing. The reason why I can talk and do all this is because I got used to it, and I learned to deal with it easier. But
Well, and
so
you've
I
learned
learned
to use them to kind of stoke your fire. And that's that.
bring it.
You're a very strong person, Sabina, and you're an inspiration to a lot of people simply because you show that strength. So I'm glad. Keep telling those sons of guns.
Yeah.
I caught myself that that yeah, it's almost desperation on their end, but it's
It
beautiful
is.
that you're using that to stoke their fire because that makes your resolve. I can feel it talking
Yeah.
to you. It's made it that much stronger. And we're
Yeah.
only, really a week from a bad time for you with the anniversary. And look at you. You're on, talking to thousands of people and sharing your story. So I
Yeah.
completely appreciate that. And,
Well,
and please continue
I
where
will.
this journey. I mean, you see this. Marietta started opening your eyes to what fake news was and
Yes.
the tactics of the
Yeah.
left. Where did it go from there?
Oh, it right there, it taught me so much. And both of us, we looked at each other when we watched the news and they were talking about Marietta and showing something. And we looked at each other and we said, was there another Marietta happening somewhere else? Because the way they talked about it was nothing like what happened there.
Right.
It was insane. We kept just looking at each other and trying to flip channels and find something that we actually saw while we were there. But the second day we said, okay, we're not doing that a third day. I was wearing that because it takes a lot out of me to relive all this. Matter of
Yes.
fact, tomorrow I'm going to be pretty much out, but um, it's therapeutic to share. But we live
Well,
in
thank you
Marietta. We're,
again.
we're ready to go home and just mad and angry. And this blonde young lady walks up and she says, I'm with a small local paper and I would like to tell your story. And I said, honey, I've been telling my story for 2 days. Ain't nobody talking about it. Let's not waste each other's time. Good night. See you later. And she said, no, I promise I will. And something about her I said, okay, well, why not? Okay. So she talked with us, she wrote down, and her name is Michelle Moons. Michelle
Ah.
Moons is now working for Breitbart and she is at the White House. She's in the correspondence pool. And she was the first one and the only one that shared our story
Well, thank you,
and
Michelle
told
Moons.
more than just yes. And she's my friend, and we became friends. And then
Excellent.
when I had the anniversaries, her mother came with her, and we became friends. And her mother told me, "You need to be on Twitter. You need to tell your story on Twitter." I didn't even know what Twitter was. I didn't know what people said when they did this hashtag.
Right.
Well, that's a pound sign. Get out of here.
Exactly.
Twitter. I mean, it's enough with Facebook. She said, no. So Michelle Moon's mom pushed me and said, okay, just start slowly. You learn how with the words. You can only I'm like, oh, okay, my old age. I don't really want to know more. Okay, I tried. Well, I'm at 27,000 almost, 27,600 something followers. And the people it reaches beside the trolls, but you can block them real easy or you mess with them a little bit and then
Right.
block them. The support, the outreach, the audience, the worldwide. I found people that knew Dominic in Los Angeles. Somebody just told me, send me a personal message. He knew Dominic and hung out with him doing go-kart races. And we meet up on Twitter. So Michelle Moons and her mom, they got me into Twitter. And then Michelle Moons started working for Breitbart. So she would follow up. And well, then I was invited to speak at the Anaheim rally. I was invited to speak at the San Diego rally. And she would always write stories. So now people started hearing about me, and then MSNBC and Fox and Hannity, and it started happening to share my story and share Dominic with everybody. And I thought that was it. And it was fun. It gave me pleasure to make sure people knew who my son was and what an amazing man he was and what we lost. Not just me, but so many. Um, and then Anthony, um, his family has property here in Arkansas. And he had taken me out here one time and he asked me if I could imagine living here. And I said no. We're 45 minutes away from Texarkana. There's a small town next to us. It's really rural and quiet. And I said, nah, never. Well, that's where I'm at now, and I'm loving it. But
Yeah.
um,
Had to get away
he
from
knew.
California.
Yeah, he was told from the day Dominic was killed until we moved constantly, you need to get her out of here. Because every day I drove by the same spot where my son took his last breath, where he laid. I would go to the spot where I then knew this is where he laid, and I would sit there. And then they created a memorial because he was so well liked for the city. He did so much. He was volunteer of the year in 2004 because he gave hours and hours of free time. But it was getting harder and it was killing me inside, and I didn't even know it. It was tearing me up. And so we got a little camper because we didn't want to leave our dogs behind. Dominic's dog, he suffered long enough. He lost his master and would lay on the stairs looking at a picture of his master on the wall.
Yes, I've got a photo that will be
It
aired
tear
later.
you up. Yeah.
Yes,
And
it does. The dog is looking at the pictures.
yeah,
Yeah.
right through the slats in the
Hmm.
rail. And so we got us a camper, called it our mobile dog house. And we were on the way to Arkansas from California. And I get a phone call on the road, and it says, yeah, this is the blah 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 from the RNC, and we would like to invite you to Cleveland. And I hung up. Yeah, right. I hung up again.
You got a habit
Yeah,
with hanging up on important phone calls.
I know I do that a lot because I thought I'm not doing that no more, but I did back then because I thought it was a prank, because that was never a goal, and I never even knew what the RNC is. And so they called back, thank God. And they asked me if I could come and stay the week, and I would be a guest speaker the first night with two other angel dad and an angel mom. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm traveling to Arkansas. Well, we fly you out wherever you are. So I left. We got to Arkansas. Thank God I had some a suit with me and some good clothes, not just vacation clothes. And they flew me out of Little Rock to Cleveland, put me up, and I got to experience the RNC. And I got to speak the first night. And
The gal that doesn't like to public speak.
wow. But I got to tell you though, while we prepped the first day, we learned how to read the teleprompter. We had to write our own speech. We just
Right.
had to shorten it a little bit. Um, and they taught us where to look, what, and that worked well. And then that night we are behind in the green room behind the big stage. And I know there were about, I don't know, 45,000 people. And I didn't know how many watched on TV. And I'm glad I didn't know at that time, because I would have spoken German and just started sweating, dripping on the stage.
Right.
But behind the stage, the three of us hugged and we prayed. And I looked up and I asked my boy, I said, listen, this is the biggest thing I've done. Just help me find the right words and make it through and not mess up. And when we stood on the stage and I got to the podium, I felt my son behind me. I felt his hands right here on my shoulders, whispering in my ear, "You got this, Mom." And that's the confidence you saw. Because I've never done that. I never read from a teleprompter. But the feel in the room, and I knew I had to get their attention, so I talked loud because I didn't want anybody in the back row keep texting. I wanted them to know what this felt like and how important this is, and that this is the only man, our present future president, that will make sure not too many more will end up like me. So I felt him. I felt him hold me up, and the adrenaline kicked in. And I think in the whole week that I was there, and I met so many people. I met Scott Baio and Sheriff Clark and Ben Carson and all the people I would see on TV. Now they coming up and, "Hey, Dom's mom, I want to get a picture." And I'm like, what? It was surreal. It was like a dream. I hardly slept in those 5 days. It was just a constant go, go, go interview, radio, Fox and Friends at 5 in the morning, where I met with Dr. Ben Carson, and he came up and wanted a picture. And still now looking back, because today was 2 years ago that I was at the RNC, and I'm looking at pictures, and even then I was a different woman. And but it prepared me for other things to come. And it gave me strength, it gave me the confidence I needed, because before Dominic's death I was just Dom's mom. I was a wife, but well, it wasn't a great marriage, so that wasn't any fun. My biggest pride was my child, my son. Being his mother was my best job ever. So being from that to that new life and being out in public and people recognizing you and um, supporting you or spitting at you, and I had people spit at me and throw things, and um, like that's gonna stop me and tell me, "Oh, I'm gonna go home now and shut up." No, not gonna happen. But
Right.
it prepared me for everything else, and then from there, meeting all these other angel families. I get at least twice a week, I get messages or emails from families who lost a loved one or who got hurt or who um, were affected one way in an accident, hit and run. Now they have high insurance in a car demolished and nobody paying for it because the illegal ran and left his $200 hoopty on the side of the road. Um, so I learned now to become an advocate. I I never wanted to do any of that, but when God puts a gift like that in your lap and gives you the words and the right mind to do this, you got to. You can't. And then I learned I'm speaking for others who can't, who won't. I'm friends with a lot of angel moms who don't want to talk about it. They can't. But through me, they get a voice. And so I'm wearing that as an honor. Sometimes I want to quit. I just want to be done. I don't want to hear no more news, because every time I hear about another victim, another illegal with a chainsaw almost killing his wife in Los Angeles, it rips that scab off my wound, and I feel it all over. And poor Anthony has to deal with that when I'm a puddle, and he's right there and he never goes away. So we're
Right.
now living in Arkansas, and it's nice and quiet. I have a big sign. We have about 300-yard driveway, and on the front it says no trespassing. And we have a gun here, so if anybody should try to come here, I'm not aiming for your knees. Not
Right.
doing it. And I became a good shooter, so I'm not worried
Good.
about that.
That's
But
fantastic.
yeah,
Well, I mean, so this it sounds to me obviously that President Trump was a huge far cry from the response you got from the Obama administration.
big time.
Just recently, immigration has come back so well, illegal immigration has come back so
Yeah,
much in the news cycle. It's being pushed. President Trump, he put it on the Democrats, last year and said, "Oh, yeah, you guys want to fix illegal immigration? Well, sure, I'll give you 2.5 times the people that you want to amnesty, and,
yeah,
and we'll make them citizens." And he threw it out there and they ran. So,
yeah.
you said you were a different person in 2016. Well, a lot's transpired. A lot of people aren't the same people they were 2 years ago. Has this, seeing what's going on, I understand it probably does rip off some scabs, but are you out there being booked more? Are you getting more interviews? Are you, because of this huge fight we have on our hands with the liberals actually telling us that these illegals have more rights than us?
And they
And
do,
they
and they
talk
do.
about kids in cages, and they talk about separation.
Yeah,
There is no
yeah,
separation like the separation that you're dealing with,
yeah.
Sabina. And so, tell me a little bit about the last, I guess it really been hard the last year, but the last 6 months has been just a crazy whirlwind with
It,
illegal immigration. And it's
yeah,
why I wanted to do this show. I wanted to
right.
bring on the real effects of illegal immigration and the cost. And I'm not talking money.
That's
Uh,
right. When I started hearing the left talk about um, these poor immigrants, first of all, I get very angry. They're not immigrants.
right.
I'm an
You are
immigrant.
an immigrant. That's
I'm
right.
an immigrant. And there
Right.
are thousands waiting in line with their paperwork that they filled out with monies they paid, years they waited. They are real immigrants. So clearly they started blurring the lines and they don't talk about illegal immigrants. Now they just call them immigrant communities.
Right. Right.
Really? Come on now. Anyway, so then I learned, okay, they blurring the lines with the wording and trying to play us and explain that they just coming for a better life. Well, yeah, okay. But if I don't like my house because it's not that pretty, I can't just walk into that mansion down the street and say, well, listen, I want a better life, so I'm going to live here right now. Open
Exactly.
up. You're going to pay for me now and my kids and my grandkids. And then I'm going to bring my whole family and you're going to pay for all of them because I want a better life.
Right.
And so the excuses, I would scream at the TV when I would hear them, or the sob stories, mainly the left brings all these crying women and children and oh my God, and they fleeing violence. And okay, there's asylum. You can go about it the correct way.
Right.
Um, well, but they can't wait that long. Really? Well, if that's the only way you can get in legally, it's worth your time. I waited a couple of years, so you can too. Um, I was hooked up at an interview. They had a illegal on there. She wasn't in the same studio, but it was a split screen. And I always have my weapon with me. I have my son with me right here, his ashes. And so they had her on, and she started talking about that. Her daughter is scared. Her little daughter is scared of President Trump. Really? Why is he scared? You're the one having her scared of him. He doesn't scare anybody. You do. Well, she was fleeing violence and she wanted a better life. And they trying to separate her from her child. And I said, no, nah, this is separation. You can still hug your child. You can go back, just like the DACAs. That's another issue that
Right.
drove me up the wall
Right.
because, okay, so your parents brought you, your illegal parents brought you here as a child. Now you're an adult. You enjoyed all kind of free benefits, education. How about you take your illegal parents, your free education, go back to the country of your origin and help fix that? You're not getting a break. Because I also learned that the fraud rate with the DACAs, they fill out 5 different forms with 5 different names. Just like you can get an ID any swap meet. So a lot of illegals have 3, 4 different names. They get busted, they give one ID, the next day they drive with a different one. The fraud rate is so high. there are killers amongst them. There are pedophiles amongst them. The vetting system is not what they want you to believe, that they're all valedictorians and future doctors, you know.
Right.
So it's thrown at us under the disguise of that not all of them are rapists and bad hombres, and not all of them hurt somebody, and some of them want a better life. Okay, I got you. I agree. And no child should be separated. I can tell you about separation, permanent separation. But you have no excuse to bum rush this country.
That's right.
And they figure out, because they're very smart. They have their teams. They pay a lot of money to the coyotes who bring them here.
Hmm.
To those, if people don't know what coyote is, they pay somebody a couple of $1,000s to walk them through the desert. A lot of women get raped on their way. Kids get raped.
Right.
Some of them get separated, where the coyotes don't care. They got money. And it's treacherous. It's still illegal. So don't do it.
Right.
Come the legal way. Or make your own country better. Because if you can put together $5,000-6,000 to be transported to the United States and maybe separated from your child, well, how about using that money and work in your country and fix it and get involved and change it? We are not the playground for everybody. We can't save everybody, because the Americans that are for open borders and crying about these poor children at the border, they are stepping on our own children in need, our veterans, our elderly, while they're running to the border for their little photo op.
Amen.
And it pisses me off to no avail when I see elderly people having to decide between medication and sandwich, can't go to the doctor, they live in a shack, or we have children in the urban areas that will never come out of there, right? That grow up within crime because there's nobody to care for them. So if I don't take care of my own household and I neglect my child while I go down the street and clean their house and play with their children, CPS would come and take my child away. But Americans, some on the left, think it's okay that, okay, our own, well, it's not that bad. And we're gonna walk past them while we take a check and feed kids in another country, or worry about the kids at the border. And then with the cages and all that happened under Obama.
Exactly.
So you mean to tell me it didn't bother you back then?
Right.
And Trump was not a racist until he became president, because he was well liked by the Black community as well?
Absolutely.
And now all of a sudden you care so much for those poor children and the mothers, and they being ripped away from them.
Right. It's hypocrisy.
Hypocrites. They are hypocrites, because
Exactly.
they don't care about the kids. And Bruce, when I learned, because I was trying to figure out why in the world would any American fight for illegals, not Americans,
Right.
for illegals and their rights? Why would anybody have illegals vote for school board vote in San Francisco now?
Yep.
Why would anybody want a sanctuary city where illegals feel safe and can nobody harm them, where they can just all go to and feel better? And I'm trying to, in my head, try to figure out why. Why would any American want that? Because what happened to me and thousands of other Americans, because it's about 20 to 25 victims a day in America that nobody talks about.
Exactly.
I couldn't come up with anything. I didn't get it. And then I go to Washington. I try to meet with senators, and they don't want to see me. They sent me to talk to one of their staff members who looks like she's 12 years old and kind of sits there and just looks at me, don't even care what I'm talking about. Now I'm learning that, wait a minute, there is a big industry behind that. There are lobbyists for
Yep.
companies who hire illegals.
That's right.
So you have companies hire illegals that they can pay less than Americans. They don't have to pay insurance or union fees or none of that or taxes.
Right.
They make more profits. Oh, and wait a minute. When 1 million illegals in California get a driver license, they automatically register to vote.
Exactly. Hmm.
Let's see, if they would vote for Republicans, we would have a 200-foot wall with drones and armed guards at every 2 meters.
You're right.
But we know they click on the D for Democrats.
Right.
So
Illegally.
now that, yes,
That's
absolutely.
you know, that's I don't want to interrupt, but we have
No,
just
no,
been
that's fine.
told, we've just been told by the Democrats that they absolutely despise foreign interference in our elections, and they demand that there are no foreign interference in our
Yes.
elections. And then, like you said, in San Francisco, they just allowed illegals to vote.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy and double standard is, I don't know how you can even come up with anything other than they are crooked and they are un-American.
Well, that they are traitors. I call them traitors.
Exactly.
Because you also have in California, well, I wonder why I didn't move out of there earlier. You have illegals serve on city councils. So not
Wow.
only are they making decisions
For Americans.
for other illegals,
Ugh.
now you have companies where, let's say, one illegal gets in the HR department. Well, they hire more illegals, and guess who's pushed out? Minorities. They
Unbelievable.
losing their jobs and they're being replaced. And the other day, it's an image that I never thought I would have in my head. I remember with Dominic learning about Black history and Rosa Parks on the bus and how they couldn't even get on the bus first. Then they got to sit in the back. And then they got to sit anywhere because they fought for that. Well, right now, I look at it this way. The Black Americans are on the outside of the bus. They're not even inside the bus, not in the back of the bus, not in the front. They outside at the bus station, waving as the bus leaves with illegals in it because they are being replaced. I talked to a man who had a garden lawn mowing business with his 2 sons, working hard. He lost everything because he pays taxes, he pays his son's salary, he pays insurance, and so forth. Well, he charges $50 a month. Well, the illegal comes with his 2 illegal buddies and charges $25 a month. And people still do that and hire them, even though you could create the biggest issue because one of them breaks his foot on your property, you're done. That's his house now. So this guy's telling me he couldn't keep up. He lost his business. And more people are waking up that used to be Democrats. They leaving that plantation. They moving out. They moving over to the Republican side because they started waking up.
Right.
And now the Democrats getting desperate. They need their voter base. So who's better? The illegals. That's why they fight. That's why Nancy Pelosi has the nerve to stand up for 8 hours and talk about illegal aliens. I don't care what she calls them, it's still an illegal alien. And that's the correct legal term. It's not illegal immigrant, it's not undocumented American in waiting. I heard all kind of, I mean,
that's a bunch of crap.
Yeah, and so then I learned, oh, it's about cheap labor and it's about votes. Exactly. And that's what it is. And a lot of people make a lot of money because of illegals. And yes, I would pick my own vegetables because I do that now. I grow my own vegetables. We have farmer markets. And if I have to pay $5 for an apple, but there are no more illegals in this country taken away from Americans, I pay it. And I eat it little by little and enjoy every bit of it.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. It's an amazing It's an amazing turn of events that we've witnessed since we all listened to President Trump come down that
Yeah,
escalator. They stopped
yeah.
hiding what they were doing when they were called out
Yes,
for doing it, and now they're just openly telling us that
yes,
us as Americans, it doesn't matter. And
yeah,
you, Sabina Durden, someone who's lost your child, that doesn't matter because we have to bring these kids out of cages, and
yeah,
everyone deserves the
yeah,
right because no one is illegal. No, you nailed it.
right,
They're illegal aliens. And
yeah.
that's exactly why
No
we're
rights.
doing
They
this
have
show.
no rights. Well, they
Exactly.
shouldn't have rights, but they do.
The
They are
loopholes.
better protected than we are. That's with the killer of my son. There are others who, there's another case where the daughter was killed by an illegal. The guy never spent a day in jail and took off. Another one killed a young lady. He posted bond, took off. He's on FBI's most wanted list now. So it continues. And then there are the stories that nobody hears about. But one thing is clear, illegal aliens do get American benefits that we paid into. My son's taxes paid while he was working, and then even after his death for a while, paid for some illegal because they get welfare, they get food stamps, and people say, no, they can't. Really? Go to a welfare office and check it out. And no, not every Hispanic is illegal. I got that.
Right.
But every Hispanic is here, every illegal is here breaking our law. And they finding loopholes, like you said. They have fake IDs. They have, they get, oh, did you know? And I read about it that an illegal got a refund check from the taxes, $35,000
What?
because he had people in place in the Social Security offices with the paperwork where the papers didn't match up, that the dependent didn't match up, something was off the number, but they said, nah, it's okay. So not only do they get refunds, then okay, then I hear, well, they pay taxes, they should get a refund. Really, when you get gas and you pay a couple of cents taxes, or when you buy a soda or you buy whatever and you pay, that's not making it up. Okay, so you bring in, I'll give you $10 million. But we're paying 10 billion for illegal immigration. So somewhere it doesn't make sense. When you go to a hospital, go look in the emergency room. That's treated like a doctor's office. Oh, I have a hangnail. I'm gonna go right there because they can't deny service.
Right.
While an American whose insurance maybe just lapsed and he's losing a lot of blood and needs help, he gets the runaround because he got to fill out some flipping paperwork. And I can tell I'm getting more heated because I'm tired of it.
Right.
I'm driving, I'm traveling a lot. I'm all over the country. Anthony and I, we travel a lot. When I see our own people on the street, whether they want to be there, whether they lost their job, their wife lost, it goes so, we all live a paycheck away from being homeless. When I see that and I go to little towns and I see the schools dilapidated, no books, children hungry, and they're American children. And you tell me about somebody dragging their kids and that's their problem, not ours. But now we got to be so compassionate. I get so angry. Yeah,
I can.
sometimes I'm no fun to be around. I tell you that.
Oh, I can understand. It's just a cold hard fact that you have been betrayed by so many levels of your own by your own countrymen and by our the state you lived in's rules, and to go through something as tragic as a death of a child, and then to have so many more things compounded on it. I can see exactly where you're getting a lot of resolve, and like you say, a lot of people can't do that. That's why I said you're very strong, and that's very true, because you are being an excellent voice for others that just can't get out there. Speaking of which, just recently, you were at the White House with President Trump, and as all this fury and craziness with the fake news and the kids in
Yeah.
cages and the pictures from 2014 under
Yeah.
Obama and all that. Tell me how that came about, and about
Wow.
your just, what was it like being with President Trump, knowing that your message now is more important than it probably has ever
Yeah.
been?
Well, I was at the White House last year at a roundtable discussion, and we got to share our stories again. The media was there, and it was pretty intense. And then you get a few interviews afterwards, and then it gets very quiet because they don't really want to hear about you. And last year, President Trump opened up a office called Voice, VOICE,
Right.
and it's an office where it's in DC. It's under ICE,
Right.
and
It's the
matter of fact,
victims of
it's
illegal.
Alien Crime Enforcement,
There you
and
go.
I have it's www.ice.gov/voice, and there's a 855-48-VOICE number, and you can call if you became a victim of an illegal alien. Doesn't have to be death. It can be identity theft, somebody robbed you, whatever it is that have to do with an illegal alien. You can call there and get help. You have an agent there that will take down information and they help you.
What was that number one more time?
It is 1-855-48 and then VOICE. So he created that office, and because we now met, it was back then Tom Holman, he was the ICE director. He retired now,
Right.
but he was active. Barbara Gonzalez, John Ferry, Doretha McCallum, they became friends of ours. And we were invited to the grand opening of that voice office. And so a year later now, they wanted to do an anniversary party. And they called and they said, we want you in Washington to be there for that 1 year. And matter of fact, when you go to their website, I'm in one of the videos. They sent somebody out to explain what voice is, and I kind of got to talk about Dominic as well. And so they said, well, they're going to fly us out, and we're going to have a party and celebrate a year of that. And hopefully one day we won't need that office anymore. Then came the call, well, we're going to have to postpone it because President Trump wants to be a part of it. Well, yeah, he created it. How neat.
Right.
So finally, on June 22nd, on 21st, I flew to DC, and there were about 15 or 20 other angel families there. And we went to the ICE building, sat with the director, and got a kind of a overview of what's been happening since the office opened up a year ago. And then they said, well, now we're going to the White House. And yeah, it changes something in you, because I've been there before, and it's every time I go there, it takes my breath away, because I know what it stands for. And I wish I would know what it looks like. I wish I would have never met anybody. I wish I
Right.
would be home looking at it on TV and probably say, all these poor children, because I wouldn't know better.
Right.
And so we get to the White House, and I now have Secret Service clearance, and we go through and we get in there and we get greeted, and we didn't know we were going into the Oval Office. I've been in the what is it? I forgot the name, but in one of the conference rooms, I always see him sit there with his team, and I said, "Oh, I sat right across from him, right in it." But they walked us through, and all of a sudden, I'm walking in this room, and I'm just stopping, and I realize it's the Oval Office, the gold curtains, and his desk right there, and the couches, and it took my breath away. And so we lined up behind the desk. He wasn't in there yet, and I'm standing right to the right of his chair, and I'm just looking around and thinking, Dominic, look where I'm at because of you, and just taking it in. You can't bring your phone in. You have a little lockbox. You put your things away, and I'm standing there, and you feel the shaking because we're all lined up, all these parents who lost their children, and they now my friends. And my friend Maureen is standing next to me, who lost her son Matthew on a motorcycle. And we feel each other shaking, and our knees buckle. And then I'm looking at the desk, and I see all these presidents there, and I see little JFK crawling under the desk while his dad was there, and just being in this room. And then the door opens up, and Vice President Pence walks in, and then President Trump. In the background, all these other dignitaries standing around, and it's so surreal where everything is in slow motion. And he comes over and he hugs each of us, and then he looks at me and says, "Hi, Dom's mom." The president of the United States knows Dominic and his mom. And I'm holding this picture. All of us had our pictures with us.
Right.
And there were no cameras. It was his own photographer was there. And we asked him if he would sign these pictures, and he did. And you right there. He didn't ask to sign them. We asked because it's an honor for us, because Dominic would not be known if it wasn't for our president. I wouldn't have a voice if it wasn't for Donald J. Trump, our president. And then we get escorted to the Eisenhower building next door. It's this humongous building with all these offices connected to the White House. And they said, well, we're going to have about 3 angel moms or dads speak, and then the president. And in this room, in this auditorium, there are sheriffs and border patrol agents. And I just feel so much love for them because they put their lives on the line for us. And they get really called out nasty and attacked, and not just by our people, but by illegals crossing. And then all of a sudden we're told, no, we all need to be on stage. And so we all got on stage. Here again comes the president and the vice president. And he picked a few to speak, and then he pointed at me and he said, "Come on, I want you to tell your story. It's quite incredible." I don't have a speech prepared. I never do, but it worked. And again, I feel my son behind me. And I get to tell my son's story, standing in front of the president of the United States at the White House. And then I see cameras in the back. And I noticed some of them weren't on. CNN doesn't want to show us.
Right.
And usually after an event like that, we get bombarded. Our phones ring off the hook. We now know producers from Fox and CNN. We know them by name. And it was Laura Ingram's show. So they have us come right there to the studio. Nobody from MSNBC, nobody from CNN. They didn't even mention it.
Right.
And I watched later when I forgot her name on CNN was complaining that we call out the media for not sharing our stories as they were fading away from us. So she was just explaining exactly why we talk about them the way we do, because they are still hiding it. And we bring that up because we want to call them out. Well, my Michelle Moons was there because she was working the White House, and she did a small interview, and I shared with her how, again, the media, it's just Fox. Nobody else picks it up. And the cameraman was sharing with me that while he was there filming, that two cameramen in the back were making jokes about, well, let's see who cries first. Let's see what kind of story. Making fun of us.
Wow.
And then the next day, the big issue was the signature.
The signature was a big deal.
The signature was the biggest issue on Twitter and Facebook and in the news. how, I guess Trump signs anything. I wonder if he would sign a casket. Why he got to sign everything?
Wow.
And I'm
Wow.
thinking, now, first of all, why don't you ask me? So then somebody from Review, something CR, called and asked me directly. And then he shared it that no, it wasn't, he didn't snatch this picture out of my hand, said, let me sign it. We asked for him to please sign it, and he was gracious enough to do that. And I told him, I said, how sad is it that they spend a whole day talking about a flippant signature from the president instead of why we even were there and why we even have pictures of our dead children. And again, it shows that no matter what, the left will try to bury these stories. And I'm so grateful to you and to your listeners, to your followers, to my followers, um, for allowing me to share this and be open and honest, and not 2 minutes. And I don't know how many hours we talk, but people deserve to know, and they need to know, because every time you go outside or in your own home, could happen there too, you run the risk of being a victim of an illegal alien. Your child going growing up 10 years old, want to do a paper route, make his first check. He gets his first check, he finds out, or you find out as a parent, his social security number has been compromised, been used by an illegal for years. People need to wake up, because we're all paying for it, left or right. It don't matter what party you belong to. We are all paying for illegal aliens living here. And it's not just 11 million, because that number has been the same for years.
Right.
It's 30 million,
Mm-hmm.
probably.
At least.
At least the flow that comes over every time they talk about amnesty, or they know they can get in, they snatch a child, kidnap, and claim it's their child. And these coyotes and the people that make money bringing illegals here, they don't care. They discard a little baby in a heartbeat, or use it for whatever. We all have the duty for not just our children, but for our parents, for our spouses, for our friends, to start waking up, because I'm not the only one. There is not, there is, oh, here in town, a lady she told me, she came up to me and she said she thought I was a little harsh about illegals, because she knows a few
Oh,
that
wow.
work here. Well, we got Tyson Chicken around here. Guess who works there?
A lot of illegals, I imagine.
Yes. And so she thought I was a little harsh when she saw things on Facebook. And well, her son lives in Houston. And she called me and she said, are you coming to the store? So I went and saw her, and she hugged me and cried. Her son was hit. It was a hit and run by an illegal. They caught up with him, no insurance, no registration. Her son is hurting. He doesn't have insurance. He's still hurting a couple of months later. He has nobody fix his truck. The illegal called the insurance and demanded to get his truck fixed.
Wow.
His truck was fixed. The illegal's truck was fixed.
Wow. Does she still think that you treated them a little harshly?
No, and that's why she hugged me and apologized.
Right.
And she told me, she said, luckily her son is alive. He's gonna be okay. He was just hurting and almost lost his job because he was off. Well, then when he was off, he didn't have sick leave, so money got tight. So they went through all of that because of one illegal, and it changed her drastically, because now she got a taste of it. Thank God it wasn't death. And
is that what it takes to wake people up nowadays?
I guess it does, but I don't want that. I don't want for people to keep telling me there are good illegals. I'm sure they are. It don't matter. it really doesn't matter because you still haven't, you're still an illegal. And then when they overcrowd our classrooms, so our own children don't get the education they deserve because now you have to speak Spanish. The classroom is crowded. The teacher can't really concentrate on or pay attention to the child. Well, we give them free education. They're going to educate the other illegals. Well, come on in. Here is a booklet with all the numbers where you can get everything free and where you can apply and how what you to say to get what you need. They all
Exactly.
prompted. And it keeps going. It's like a cancer growing. And before we know it, we're like Germany. Germany will be, and Europe will be Muslim country in 10, 15 years. And this is going to happen here. There will be the American way of life will be wiped out. You have to not. Anthony's daughter, she is a bright young lady. She couldn't get a job because she didn't speak Spanish fluently. And she has a 4.0 and has her master's at 25.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
it's the little thing. And she was the same way. She thought, well, those few illegals, we know what happened to Dominic, but that was a bad one, but they're good ones. Well, then she learned that way. Wait a minute. Now I'm being discriminated against for being an American who doesn't speak fluent Spanish.
Wow.
So it's not just accidents. It's not just identity theft. It's not just fraud with taxes and welfare and all of that. When they drive on our streets and their car is not registered, like the killer of my son wasn't covered because he missed marking that little box, uninsured motorist. So I paid for my son's cremation, for his memorial service. And thank God, again, there were people that donated, and his motorcycle insurance, she asked me if he was insured for hospital stay. And I had a balance left on the whole funeral, everything, $2,500, just to show you how God works again. And she called me, she said, did they take him to the hospital? I said, no, he was dead. They took him straight to the coroner's office. She said, okay, because he was insured for medical coverage. 3 days later, I had a check for $2,500 in my mailbox.
Wow.
Covered that.
Yes.
And then Riverside had a victims program, victims of violent crime. They paid $5,000. So my cost of the major part was covered. The rest, and at that point, it doesn't matter. You put it on a card and be done with it. But people need to really, really, really wake up and stop putting so much feeling into it and start thinking a little bit harder, because we are being replaced.
We are.
And if they can vote in a school board in San Francisco, and if you have sanctuary cities where they protected, like the killer of my son was protected, you can protect your loved ones. And it doesn't matter whether you live in the middle of the country, on the West Coast, East Coast, it doesn't matter because they're everywhere.
It's exactly right. Exactly right. So, getting towards wrapping it up, I know I've had you almost 3 hours, and you have no idea how much I appreciate everything that you've been able to tell us. What can our audience here that's listening and will listen on replays later? I guarantee you, there's a lot of enraged people that have laughed with us, cried with us. We're amazed at how awesome an individual your son was. What can they do to help with this fight? There's a lot of people right now that feel your pain, and they're angry, and they want to know what they can do. So what do you suggest?
Well, first of all, I would like for you, and I have it all written down so I don't mess up.
Okay.
Also, in the meantime, last year, seven of us victims, moms, and we have a brother and a sister. They lost their sibling. We created a organization called AVIAC, Advocates for Victims of Illegal Alien Crime. And we started, we can't pay your bills. We always ask for donations. It's AVIAC .us. Um, we're trying to educate,
Is
and
that
it's victim.
aviac.us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put that up on a text on the screen so people
And
can see that.
what happened is we learned also that some organizations, they act like they care for victims, just like there are some programs for wounded warriors that really don't do nothing for veterans. So we decided we're tired of people using our children and our tragedies for their come up. We do our own. It's victims for victims. So what we do is we educate, we share, we go to Washington and we try to talk some sense into senators. We're trying to change laws. We try to be a place where people can go to liaison and so forth. And so that started. And then I have a friend of mine who is intensely researching illegal alien crime. And
Okay.
if you go to illegalaliencrimereport.com, you will lose your mind. You will not make it past a couple of readings.
Illegalaliencrimereport.com.
Report.com, because there's everything from child rape to pedophilia to identity theft to murder to gangs. He lists them all. He's incredible. So visit his website and get educated on that. You can find me on Facebook, Sabine Durden, and on Twitter, I am also Sabine_Durden. Please follow me, friend me, send me a personal message. The best thing I always say is talk about it. Don't let people push you into. That's what I realized. People call you a racist. You talk about illegals, you're
Ridiculous.
automatically a racist. It's not that you're a racist, but what they want is for you to now get away from that subject and explain for a half an hour why you're not a racist. And then they walk away because now you didn't talk about the issue. So I tell them, no, I'm not a racist, but illegal aliens are still not supposed to be here. And I don't care if the percentage rate for crimes by illegal aliens, that's another one. I love when I hear that.
Right.
Illegal aliens commit less crimes than American citizens. I'm just really,
Yeah.
I think in
Well,
China.
they all committed a crime to get here.
Right. Well, that's the first one. Then I hear, no, it's just a misdemeanor. No, I don't care if it's a 1% crime rate. It's 1% too many. There should be a big fat 0 crime
right.
rate. There shouldn't be any crime by any illegal. So when people call you racist and Nazi and you're against brown people, no, if a German comes here illegally, I want him deported. I don't want him here. Matter of fact, wasn't it a guy from Ireland that set a fire in California? He was overstaying his visa.
Yep, he was illegal.
Yeah. So I don't care where you're from. I don't care what color you are. I don't care how old you are, what male, female. I don't care. If you are not here legally with papers, you gotta go. You're not allowed in here. And so for your listeners, don't be afraid to speak up for your country, because when you are in your house, you close your doors, you lock your doors, you protect what's inside. And if somebody knocks at your door and they want to come in, you're not letting them in. And the only ones that always say, well, we need to have open borders, I ask them, I say, so you leave your door wide open? You let anybody come in, sleep in your daughter's bedroom? Really? Come on. No, we can't. And it's not a racist issue. It's not a left issue, not a right issue.
Right.
I don't care what party you belong to. We got to take care of our own first. And when all of that is taken care of, urban cities are built up, our streets are okay, the hospitals are good, the schools are up to par for our children. and everything is good. No more homeless people and no more elderly in
Right.
need.
Our vets off the streets.
Then we can open up the door a little bit. But until then, no, we have laws to follow. And why did I have to follow the law, go through all of this, so somebody else can skip the line? Because the same people that want open borders have them stand in line for the best restaurant. They got a free ticket to eat there. And they've been waiting in line for 3 hours with their ticket. Okay, here comes a family of five, skips right in front of them, goes in, and then after they get in, the restaurant manager says, yeah, we have no more food. Sorry, we gotta go. They be the first one screaming and hollering. So
Exactly.
no, I don't want nobody get in line in front of me when I waited. I asked a senator when I can expect my refund check. And he looked at me like I lost my mind. I said, yeah, I want my money back and my time paid for the time I stood in line, for the time I filled out paperwork, paid all this money to be here legally. He ran away.
Of course.
So
Of course.
when I have to follow the law, my son had to follow the law. And what did it get him? He's in an urn. He's never going to enjoy this life again. And I don't want you, I don't want anybody else to know what torture this is 24/7. Tomorrow, 6 years ago, I stood in front of my son's casket and his memorial. Imagine what's going in my head, all these images. The day after tomorrow, I watched my son's casket leave for the to be cremated.
Right.
The last time I've laid eyes on him, I was right there. And then the next thing I got is an urn with his ashes. I don't want nobody. I don't want to read no more about this. I don't want to hug another angel mom or angel dad or angel sister or brother. I'm tired. I'm tired of this pain that's avoidable, preventable, 100%. I want our politicians, and that's where each one of us can do in your city, in your community. Speak up. Make sure you elect the right people that won't allow it to be a sanctuary city or allow somebody to vote that has no right to vote here. So you can make little changes without being out there on a stage. Make sure you vote for the right people, learn about it, and start with your home, start with your community, and then reach out, and you'll be amazed what we can do. I never thought that I would have a voice in this matter. I was going to be dead by now. That was my choice. We have a voice, and every one of us count, and we have to make a difference. We can't just always wait for the next somebody else to do something about it. We can't. And to close this office, I want each person to really live life without regrets. Um, my son's dad, they didn't speak for a couple years. Can you imagine that? When you can't say anything anymore, when you have no choice to talk to your child or your loved one. Um, we don't have to be friends with everybody. We don't have to love everybody. But the people around you that you care for, make sure they know and live those moments, because this is what's carrying me right now, is that I have no regrets. There is not one moment in 6 years that I ever said, I wish I would have, I wish I could have. We did, and we did everything we needed to do, and it gives me peace that my boy is watching me and smiling and so proud of his mom, because he knows how hard it was for me to speak publicly. Now I became Mama Bear, and I'm Dom's mom, and I will be that till I meet him, and I can't wait. But I think I have a lot of work ahead of me. And I thank all your listeners, all your followers. The support is what, when I read the nice comments or the get the little hearts or somebody saying I didn't know, and but now I do, and all that gives so much strength. And you gave me strength. You really did, Bruce, because it's not easy to be here and talk, but it was like a therapy session. You should charge me, actually.
No, no, I have to thank you, and you should probably charge us,
Oh,
because you know, where it's therapy for you, it's inspiration for a lot of us. It's bringing into the forefront the true meanings of what the cost of illegal immigration is, because for a lot of us, money just doesn't mean much. Family means everything, and
yeah.
so I just want to thank you. I would really love to do this again in a few months and
Yes,
get some,
I,
you know, find out what great things that you've been accomplishing. I have a feeling that, you know, you talked several times about God setting things up and things falling into place. Well, I do
yeah.
believe over the next 4 or 5 months might be the most important time in our country's history. And I think that you are going to be a voice at the forefront. So,
Ah,
you know, I get chills
ah,
talking to you sometimes simply because I know that we are in a second revolution. We really
yes, you
are
are.
fighting for the future of our country, and it's
Yes.
patriots like you that can go no, go into something knowing it's going to be tough, and still you gave yourself to all of us today, and
Ah,
it was beautiful. I thank you very much. I'm trying to hold back my own tears because
well,
it's a touching situation. At the end of the day, illegal immigration has a terrible cost on Americans'
yeah.
lives, and we are fighting that fight. So for everyone within the sound of our voice, take Sabine's advice, get active, find out about your local representatives. If you're locally electing illegals, you're doing it wrong. You
Yeah.
know,
Or if
get out
somebody
there.
wants a sanctuary city, it's no, it's not helping anybody but illegals and criminals. And I'm just, this was so much. It wasn't. I can't say it was fun, but it was such a pleasure and honor, and I enjoyed myself speaking with you. And you really made it feel like we were in this across the table. All I was missing was a hamburger and some French fries or something.
Right, right, no doubt. I felt like me and you could sit at a local pub and enjoy a nice drink together, and probably would have a really good time.
And
When you were
one day
talking,
we gotta meet. Bruce, you and Colleen and I. And
it will
Anthony.
happen. It will happen. And
Have to meet.
I'm gonna put my the guy that runs MAGA News Network on the spot. Right above your head is www.domhugs.com. That is a website that was started quite a while ago, and I've gotten on it, and it's got some interesting information. But you're having trouble with the WordPress part of it, and I know
Yeah.
a guy named Glenn that just might be able to get up with you on that. So
So I
I'm gonna
can get
get you in touch
updated
with him.
and share pictures of the White House visit and
Oh, that
all that.
would
Yes.
exactly, and then that way we can try and get it to where you can add these things and keep us up to date, because I guarantee you, you gained a lot of people that really care about what happens from here on out. And I really, really hope that in the next couple months we can do this again. You can keep everybody up to date. Uh,
Yes.
Thank you
I'd
once
love to.
again. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. It's been such a wonderful show, simply because there's so much. I guarantee you it's going to have the effect we need going down the line, and everybody get involved and
I hope.
look at the cost of what we're dealing with. The liberals are un-American, but beyond that, they are really allowing Americans' lives to be shattered daily, and that's worth fighting for. Americans' lives are worth fighting for. We cannot ever let Dom die in vain, and I know we won't. I know it won't, because what you're doing is such an amazing thing. We're getting the word out. So if you can hold on just 5 more minutes for me, I'm going to go ahead, and if you want to go to your personal device and watch uh, the little picture montage I have in memory and in honor of the man himself, German Chocolate, Dominic Durden. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Sabine. I
Thank you,
appreciate you.
Bruce.
I'm going to throw
From
you
my
off the
heart.
screen, do this, and I will keep in touch with you a lot. And we
Yes,
have to
we're
meet.
friends now.
Yes, we are. We are. And what a beautiful friend to have. I thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank
I'm
you.
going to go ahead and I'm never good at segueing things very fast. So I'm going to go ahead
Okay.
and
We'll work with you.
yeah, awesome. Thank you, Sabine. Thank you for your time. If you guys follow Sabina at Sabina_Durden on Twitter, on Facebook, Sabina Durden, and let her know what a great job she did tonight, y'all. No
Thank
doubt
you.
about it. Thank you very much. I'll be with you very, very shortly.
God bless you, Bruce.
God,
Thank you.
God bless you. Well, guys, what an amazing, amazing interview with Sabina Durden. I mean, it was raw, it was real, and that's the only way I ever want to present anything to you guys, because that's the only way I can be. And at this juncture of our time where we're fighting for our country so hard, patriots like Sabina can really steal our resolves. And it's unfortunate it has to be under these circumstances that we met this great patriotic woman, but she was kind enough to come in and share her story. It was amazing. I put together a a little montage for her son. He's a amazing guy. I really wished I could have met him, but anybody that flies planes, drives motorcycles, volunteer firefighter, wants to be a cop, we all know that Dominic Durden was one hell of a person, and he was also raised right by that great woman we just had on. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm not going to be playing my outro music on the way out. I'm going to let you guys watch this, and then I appreciate everybody coming in for an episode of Panda's Patriots. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will definitely see you next time.